Chapter 455. What are you waiting for? Come up quickly. Don't you want to go to the Aegean Sea archipelago? Zhang Yuji called out to them from the boat. How did you know? Zhou Wen and Sheng looked at each other in surprise. They had only decided to go to the Aegean Sea archipelago after they got off the plane. Zhang Yuji actually knew about it and was waiting for them here. They couldn't figure out when Zhang Yuji had eavesdropped on them. I'll naturally know if I want to know. The boat is about to set sail. Are you coming up? Zhang Yuji asked. Do you know that your brother, Zhang Xiao, and the rest are looking for you? And Sheng asked. Ignore them. If you don't board the boat, I'll be leaving by myself. Zhang Yuji curled her lips and was about to start the engine. Zhou Wen and Sheng thought for a moment and had no choice but to board the boat. Zhang Yuji looked very excited. After starting the engine, she drove the boat towards the sea and shouted excitedly, I want to conquer the entire sea. How old are you? Why are you still so childish? And Sheng said with a smile, I like childish. If you aren't convinced, you could be childish too. Zhang Yuji retorted. And Sheng came to Zhang Yuji's side and said, Let me drive. There's danger everywhere in the sea. We have to take the right route to avoid unnecessary trouble. All right. Zhang Yuji handed the task of driving the boat to Sheng and walked to the bow. She stood at the bow and stretched out her hands, facing the wind as though she was hugging the sea. After going out into the sea, the electronic equipment was affected. There were all kinds of errors. The phone could be turned on, but there was no signal. Furthermore, it was very easy for it to crash. As the sea was too dangerous, Zhou Wen didn't grind dungeons. He constantly paid attention to the sea. Not long after entering the sea, they suddenly heard a strange song. The three of them looked in the direction of the song and saw a young woman sitting on a protruding reef in the distance. However, upon closer inspection, they realized that the woman didn't have legs and had a fishtail. She was a legendary mermaid. As if sensing the gazes of the three, the mermaid stopped singing and dived into the sea. Soon, she disappeared. A mermaid. It's actually a mermaid. We are so lucky. I heard that mermaids in the sea are very rare. I didn't expect to meet one so soon after we set sail, Zhang Yuji said. However, and Sheng said, in some myths and legends, mermaids are also known as sea demons. Encountering them at sea is an ominous sign. Why? Zhang Yuji was slightly stunned and asked in disbelief. In myths and legends, the sirens with human faces and fish bodies are the daughters of the river god. They have songs that can bewitch the hearts of sailors, causing them to involuntarily sail towards the reefs. Eventually, their ships are destroyed and they die. And Sheng told them the story of the sirens. Fortunately, they were not the sailors in the legends, and they were not bewitched. Although they saw some creatures in the sea, no one attacked them. When Zhou Wen saw an island, and Sheng circled around it without any intention of getting on it. Why don't you go to the island? Zhang Yuji asked curiously. That's the legendary Crete Island. You might not be familiar with this name, but you should have heard of the Minas Palace, right? The legendary Minas Ox is inside. No one who has entered the maze has been able to come out alive. And Sheng said. The boat left the island and headed deeper into the sea. And Sheng was indeed very familiar with the area. He basically didn't encounter any danger along the way. When he arrived at an inconspicuous island, and Sheng docked the boat. Is this island also a dimensional zone? Zhang Yuji sized up the island, but she didn't see anything like a palace. The dimensional zones in the Aegean Sea typically existed in the form of palaces. Most of the godlike existences were in palaces. Of course, the dimensional zones in the sea aren't as obvious as the dimensional zones on land. In fact, the entire Aegean Sea is a huge dimensional zone. And Sheng jumped onto the beach and pulled the boat up. He continued, there are many water elemental sprites on this island. You could try your luck. If you're lucky, a water elemental sprite companion egg will drop. In the future, you won't have to worry about water when you enter dimensional zones to adventure. Zhou Wen and Zhang Yuji knew the importance of water. If they were trapped in a dimensional zone for an extended period of time, they could still last for a period of time as long as there was water to drink. Although Zhou had stored a lot of food and water in the chaos bead and didn't need to worry about water, it was very important for the average person to have a water elemental sprite companion beast, even if it was only at the legendary stage. However, water elemental sprites were similarly rare. Typically, they could only be seen in the sea. However, people who could go out to sea had to be at least at the epic stage. Furthermore, they might not be able to find water elemental sprites at sea. The three of them landed on the island and didn't walk far when they saw a blue blob of water jumping around on the grass like a soccer ball made of jelly. That's the most ordinary water elemental sprite. A legendary dimensional creature typically has two talent skills, water gun and water ball. They can attack from afar, and Shang said as he pointed at the water blob. It's just a blob of water. Its offensive strength shouldn't be strong, right? Zhang Yuji saw that the water elemental sprite was extremely adorable, giving her the urge to pinch and hug it. Have you seen a high-pressure water-cutting machine? Granite and steel are hard enough, right? Even water can easily slice it apart. Don't underestimate the power of water. It will kill you, and Shang said seriously. As the three of them spoke, the water elemental sprite had already discovered them. Just as it was about to jump up from the grass, it spat out a water pillar in midair, shooting it at Zhou who was right in front. The water pillar was only as thick as a finger, but its speed was astonishing. Zhou dodged it, and the water pillar spewed out more than 10 meters, leaving a deep dent on a reef. Zhou drew his bamboo blade and slashed at the water elemental sprite, splitting its body apart. However, after his blade struck, the water elemental sprite's body returned to its original state. It wasn't injured at all. To kill a water elemental sprite, slashing at its body is useless. There's a water elemental crystal in its body. Only by shattering the crystal can you kill it, and Shang said. Zhou nodded and carefully sized up the water elemental sprite's body. Indeed, he saw a dark blue bead flowing in its body. With a slash, he sliced the bead apart. This time, the water elemental sprite shattered along with the bead as a crystal fell out. Chapter 456. My luck isn't bad. The first water elemental sprite produced a crystal. Unfortunately, it's not a companion egg, and Shang said with a smile. Zhou constantly searched for water elemental sprites on the island, hoping to have a companion egg drop. However, Zhang Yuji wasn't interested in companion eggs. All she did was take a few photos with her phone as though she was touring. Why is that water elemental sprite a little different? When Zhou and company arrived beside a waterfall, they saw a strange water elemental sprite. Typical water elemental sprites were blue and looked spherical, but in fact, they were in the shape of water droplets. However, this water elemental sprite was silver. It didn't look like a water droplet, but a snake. This should be a high-level water elemental sprite. It might be at the epic stage. Be careful, and Shang said irresponsibly. Zhou was indeed very careful. He summoned the stone armor and didn't approach the silver water elemental sprite. He summoned Overlord Sword and slashed from afar. The water snake didn't dodge. It opened its mouth and spewed out a silver stream of water. However, the stream of water it spewed out was somewhat strange. It was in the shape of a venomous fang. As the sword beam slashed across, the water snake's venomous fangs were shattered. The sword beam continued slashing at it. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, the silver water snake turned around and burrowed into the pool under the waterfall. Its body was similar to water, so the moment it entered the pool, it immediately vanished. It was impossible to determine its location with the naked eye. Thankfully, Zhou had Truth Listener. The Truth Listener earring's ability ignored color, so he immediately saw the silver water snake's location in the pool. Zhou chased after it and slashed a sword beam into the pool. Boom! The water surface was sliced apart by the spinning sword beam, slashing apart the silver water snake's body. Even the water elemental crystal in its body was shattered. A silver crystal-like companion egg fell out and sank to the bottom of the pool. A companion egg actually dropped. Zhou stood by the pool and observed for a while. Seeing that there were no signs of other dimensional creatures in the pool, he jumped into the pool and dived to the bottom. Zhou reached out to pick up the companion egg. Just as he was about to float up, he suddenly felt a huge suction force at the bottom of the pool, causing his body to sink instantly, as though he had been sucked away by a toilet. Splash! Zhou fell with the water and realized that there was a huge space beneath the pool. Beneath it was surging seawater. Zhou too looked up, but he couldn't find the hole that he had fallen from. Above him was a black rock without any gaps. He slashed at the rock, and the sword beam shattered a huge chunk of the rock, but there was still rock behind it. Zhou slashed a few times, but it was all rock. There was no exit. On the other hand, there was light coming from the place where the seawater flowed, as if it was the exit of a tunnel. Zhou had no choice but to follow the water flow and head for the exit. As long as he could leave, it wouldn't be difficult to circle back to the pool. Soon, Zhou rushed out with the water. After exiting, he realized that he was at the exit of a waterfall. After Zhou came out of the waterfall, he floated in midair and was alarmed by what he saw, because this waterfall and the pool below, no matter how he looked at it, were the ones he had fallen into. However, he had clearly fallen into the pool, so how could he have come out from the mouth of the waterfall above? Zhou carefully sized up his surroundings. Indeed, there was nothing wrong. The surrounding environment was identical. It was the pool he had fallen into, but there was no Sheng or Zhang Yuji beside the pool. Don't tell me they went into the pool to look for me? Zhou thought to himself as he flew higher to confirm if they were still on the island. When he flew into the air, the small island was immediately taken in by Zhou. It was an extremely beautiful island with lush green grass everywhere and clear spring water surrounding it. However, when Zhou's gaze landed on a spot, his pupils constricted. On a grassy slope, there was an apple tree. There was only one apple on the huge apple tree, but it was somewhat unusual. It was as though it was made of gold, emitting a resplendent luster. Under the apple tree, there was a huge black lizard sleeping. The lizard was even bigger than an elephant. Soon, Zhou realized that it wasn't a lizard, but a dragon from the West District's mythology. This was because lizards didn't have wings, but the dragon had two folded wings on its back. Golden apple, dragon. Zhou was alarmed and puzzled. This was somewhat similar to the myths and legends Zhou had read before. Legend had it that the human hero, Peleus, married the sea goddess. He invited all the goddesses to attend their wedding, but he didn't invite the goddess of discord, Eris. Eris bore a grudge and took out a golden apple to give to the guests at the wedding. On it were the words for the most beautiful goddess. In the end, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite argued over the golden apple, eventually leading to a human battlefield. Legend had it that the golden apple tree in the holy garden was guarded by 100 dragons, but that was only a legend. This place didn't look like a holy garden no matter how you looked at it. The black dragon under the golden apple tree didn't look like a 100-headed dragon either. It only had one head. Zhou didn't know what the golden apple was for, so he didn't wish to snatch it, nor did he plan on disturbing the black dragon. Although it might not be a 100-headed dragon, dragons themselves were legendary mythical creatures. Zhou didn't wish to take the risk. However, what puzzled Zhou was that they hadn't seen the golden apple tree before they arrived on the island, much less the dragon. Why did these things suddenly appear? Zhou sized up the entire island, but he didn't find Sheng and Zhang Yuji. What was even stranger was that even the boat they had left on the beach had vanished. Could it be that this isn't the island from before? It just looks a little similar. When I passed through the cave under the pool, I arrived at another place. The more Zhou thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Bam! Bam! Just as Zhou was pondering over it, he heard two splashes. It was as though a rock had fallen into the water. He turned his head and saw Sheng and Zhang Yuji fall from the waterfall into the pool, stirring up a huge splash. They were fine and quickly crawled out of the pool. However, Zhou felt that something was amiss. He turned his head to look at the black dragon under the apple tree, and indeed, he saw that it had already woken up from its slumber. It slowly got up and looked up at the waterfall. "Zhou, what are you doing up there?" Zhang Yuji shouted at Zhou when she saw him flying in the air. Chapter 457. The moment Zhang Yuji's voice sounded, the black dragon seemed to wake up. It raised its head and pricked up its ears as it stared intently in the direction of the waterfall. Zhou knew that they couldn't see the dragon and the golden apple tree in the distance. He hurriedly gestured for them to keep quiet and landed. He pulled them into the cave at the source of the waterfall. Boom! Just as the three of them entered the cave, they saw the black dragon fly over like a black bolt of lightning. It landed beside the pool and sized up its surroundings as though it was searching for something. After circling the pool a few times and confirming that there was nothing, it slowly headed for the apple tree. The three people in the waterfall cave who had been holding their breaths finally dared to breathe. Strange. I've been to this island many times. There were only some water elemental sprites. Why would there suddenly be a dragon? And Sheng said with a frown. That's not all. Zhou recounted his discovery and speculation. Zhang Yuji's eyes lit up when she heard that. In other words, we aren't on the original island. When we passed through the passageway under the pool, we entered another space. This is a dimensional zone that has never been discovered by anyone. There's a dragon and a golden apple here? Is that really the golden apple from the fairy tales? How would I know? Zhou shook his head, and Sheng said, every mythical creature is not to be trifled with. Even if it's a relatively weak existence in myths and legends, it's not something we can deal with now. Let's not target the golden apple. Let's swim back from the waterfall passageway. It's best if we can return. If we can't, we'll try entering the pool again. Perhaps we can leave this place after being sucked in again. Zhou agreed. He didn't wish to take the risk. Although Zhang Yuji was very interested in the golden apple from the fairy tales, she had no choice but to leave with the two of them. A terrifying thing happened. There was no way back at the end of the waterfall. Furthermore, after they entered the pool, there was no strange suction force at the bottom of the pool. After coming out of the pool, the trio returned to the waterfall cave. Zhang Yuji thought for a moment and said, I remember hearing from my elders that once you enter some dimensional zones, unless you obtain a special item in the dimensional zone, you won't be able to leave until you die inside. From the looks of it, this dimensional zone should be the death domain you mentioned. After entering, either you die or the dimensional creature dies. There's no third path, and Sheng said. Zhang Yuji thought for a moment and said, if we leave this island, will we be able to leave this dimensional zone? I've already seen it from the sky. Previously, I could see the distant island, but there's nothing here. All I can see is the endless sea, Zhou said. In that case, we're really trapped here. This island isn't big. I reckon that the black dragon or the golden apple are special items in the dimensional zone. If we kill the dragon or obtain the golden apple, we might be able to leave this place. Zhang Yuji said excitedly, if we kill that dragon, will we become the first batch of dragon slayers in human history? If you aren't afraid of becoming a dragon's poop, you can give it a try. Zhou was more inclined to think of a way to obtain the golden apple. The chances of dying in a battle with a mythical creature were too high, but if they were to pluck the apple, they might not need to fight the dragon. They had quite a number of companion beasts on them. Using the companion beasts to lure the black dragon away before plucking the golden apple would probably be much safer. And Sheng agreed with Zhou's thoughts. Yuji, stay here. Zhou and I will give it a try first. Let's see if we can lure the dragon away and pluck the golden apple. Why do you want me to stay? Zhang Yuji asked in puzzlement. Because the two of us are going to be thieves to steal the apple. If the two of us can't do it, it'll be your turn as a dragon slayer, and Sheng said. That's right. I can't do something sneaky either. Zhang Yuji nodded, and Sheng asked Zhou about the location and details of the golden apple tree before sneaking out of the waterfall cave with him. I have an essence energy skill that converges my aura. I shouldn't be discovered by the dragon if I get closer. When I'm close, I'll summon a companion beast to test how strong the dragon is, and Sheng said to Zhou as he lurked out. Zhou saw that he was like a snake as he silently slithered through the grass. If he hadn't seen him with his eyes, he wouldn't have been able to sense his existence. He couldn't help but admire Ensheng for being a wily old fox. His various abilities were more complete than his. Zhou didn't have a similar essence energy skill, so he couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't be discovered by the dragon. Therefore, he didn't approach. He found a relatively high spot nearby and watched the golden apple tree and the black dragon from afar. Before long, Ensheng was less than a kilometer away from the golden apple tree. He stuck close to the ground as the armor on his body automatically changed color, almost fusing with the grass. Then, Zhou saw him summon a leopard-like companion beast and run towards the golden apple tree. At the same time, it let out a roar. The black dragon wasn't asleep to begin with. It immediately stood up, and when it saw the leopard-like companion beast, it flapped its wings, and a black bolt of lightning streaked across the sky. The leopard was no match for it at all. Just as it spewed out a blob of flames, the black dragon swallowed the flames along with the leopard. So fast, Zhou was secretly alarmed. The dragon's speed was almost comparable to the mythical creature that resembled a wolf and tiger in the temple. Although it was still slightly inferior, it was no longer a speed that epic humans like them could match. The leopard was also an epic creature, but in front of the black dragon, it had no way of resisting. Ensheng lay motionless on the grass. After the dragon swallowed the leopard companion beast, it roared violently and shuttled back and forth on the island like lightning, as though it was searching for other invaders. Zhou also lay in the grass, not daring to move. There were a few times when the black dragon nearly flew past him, making his heart leap to his throat. This wasn't a game. Once he was discovered by the black dragon, there was a high chance of death. After the black dragon calmed down and returned to the golden apple tree, it seemed a little tired after a while. When it lay under the tree to rest, Ensheng secretly retreated and gave Zhou a look. The two of them slowly retreated to the side of the waterfall. As the sound of the waterfall was very loud, it could drown out their voices. Even if they made some noise here, it was unlikely it would attract the dragon's attention. After returning to the cave, Ensheng said, "This island is too small. With the black dragon's speed, no matter where we lure it to, it can immediately return to the apple tree. From the looks of it, luring it away probably won't work." Chapter 458. To lure the tiger away from the mountain, it had to be far enough away. Now, as long as they approached the golden apple tree, they would be killed by the dragon. Therefore, this plan was clearly useless. "What do you think?" Ensheng asked Zhou. Zhou thought for a moment and said, "It's definitely impossible to fight it head-on. The chances of death are too high. We can only think of other solutions." After a pause, Zhou continued, "I have an idea. If I have a way to hold back that dark dragon for a few seconds, do you have the confidence to pluck the golden apple?" "How many seconds can you last?" Ensheng asked after some thought. "At most 10 seconds. At least 5 seconds. However, before that, I need to use my companion beast to confirm it again before I can determine the exact time," Zhou said after serious consideration. "If you can hold it back for 6 seconds, I can pluck the golden apple," Ensheng said after careful inference. "Then let's give it a try." Zhou planned on trying out the black dragon's abilities. "I still have quite a number of companion beasts on me. I'll try a few more times. I have to test the black dragon's abilities before taking action," Ensheng said. "Can I do anything?" Zhang Yuji asked. "Please cheer us on here," Ensheng said to her. "All right, I'll cheer you on." Zhang Yuji didn't plan on really becoming a dragon-slaying warrior. Furthermore, she was only at the legendary stage, inferior to Zhou and company. She had only been joking previously. Zhou and Ensheng left the cave again and found a hidden spot to summon their companion beasts. They got their companion beasts to stay in different spots. After everything was set up, the companion beasts attacked the black dragon from different spots. Ensheng had endless companion beasts. Zhou had quite a number of companion beasts as well, but their companion beasts were basically like meat buns that never returned. Zhou used the blood threadworms to secretly burrow into the black dragon's body, but the moment they burrowed into its skin, they automatically died. There was also the epic poison bat. After it flew through the air, it was swallowed by the black dragon. The two of them had sacrificed at least 30 to 40 companion beasts. None of them could last more than 5 seconds in front of the black dragon. This made them realize how terrifying the black dragon was. Of course, this was also because the two of them couldn't bear to use their beloved companion beasts. All they took out were cannon fodder companion beasts. However, the different attacks of the various companion beasts made the black dragon use some of its abilities, allowing Zhou Wen and Ensheng to gain a clearer understanding of the black dragon. Its speed is far faster than ours. There's no need to mention its strength. My strength-type epic companion beast was easily crushed by it. Furthermore, it isn't afraid of wind, fire, lightning, and has very high resistance. It doesn't spew fire, but it can spew poisonous smoke. Ensheng mentioned the results of his observations before looking at Zhou Wen and asking, "What do you think? How many seconds could he last?" "I'd rather underestimate than overestimate." 7 seconds. Zhou Wen carefully calculated many times in his mind, taking into account his various abilities. Finally, he gave a conservative number. "Enough. Let's finish the plan first. I'll hide near the apple tree. My limit should be within 500 meters. Then, use your companion beast to lure it away and think of a way to hold it back for 7 seconds. Leave the rest to me," Ensheng said as he drew on the ground, explaining the entire plan. "Remember, we only have one chance. Failure means death," Ensheng said to Zhou Wen as he prepared to leave the cave. "Understood." Zhou Wen nodded solemnly. The two of them left the cave. According to the plan, Ensheng secretly approached the apple tree. His ability to converge his aura and disguise were very good. Zhou Wen watched Ensheng advance on the grass, almost unable to tell the difference between him and the grass. The closer he got to the black dragon, the slower Ensheng's speed became. It was as though he was moving in slow motion. A few hours later, Ensheng was about 400 meters away from the apple tree when the black dragon's ears suddenly twitched. Zhou Wen and Ensheng's hearts leaped to their throats. Ensheng lay there motionless, while Zhou Wen's heart raced. He even forgot to breathe. After a while, the black dragon's ears drooped down again. Only then did Zhou Wen feel a little better. However, Ensheng was extremely bold. He continued crawling forward another 20 to 30 meters, almost making Zhou Wen's heart stop. Zhou Wen knew that with every centimeter Ensheng approached the black dragon, the risk of being exposed increased. He had originally planned to stop about 500 meters from the apple tree, but now he was within 400 meters. This was Ensheng using his danger to reduce Zhou Wen's risk. The closer he was to the apple tree, the faster he could approach the golden apple. The earlier the black dragon would turn around to chase after him, reducing Zhou Wen's risk. Finally, Ensheng made the agreed gesture. Zhou Wen heaved a long sigh of relief, knowing that it was time for him to appear. After retreating to the edge of the island, Zhou Wen summoned his companion beasts and made sufficient preparations. Only then did he roar into the sky, "Giant lizard, I'm here. Come and eat me." The black dragon, who was resting under the golden apple tree, immediately pricked up its ears when it heard Zhou Wen shout. It stood up, and after confirming its location, it flapped its wings and instantly tore through the air, charging towards Zhou Wen. Black lightning streaked across the sky and instantly appeared in Zhou Wen's line of sight. Zhou Wen summoned a row of golden warriors to block the black dragon. These were originally food left for Tyrant Behemoth after they were spawned, but later on, Tyrant Behemoth ate primordial crystals, so there was no point in keeping them. The black dragon charged over like lightning as the golden warriors were sent flying. Zhou Wen slashed out with bamboo blade in one hand and overlord sword in the other. The demonic astral wheel and Feng wheel sword flash crisscrossed as they slashed at the black dragon's head. A black beam shot out from the black dragon's eyes, blasting the demonic astral wheel and Feng wheel sword flash apart. However, its body didn't stop as it charged at Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen activated ghost steps and instantly moved more than 10 meters to the left. At the same time, he counted inwardly. 1 second, on the other side, and Ensheng had already charged towards the golden apple tree like a ghost. His speed was equally terrifying. The black dragon's speed was even faster than Zhou when he used ghost steps. With a flap of its wings, its huge body nimbly drew an L shape in the air and caught up to Zhou. It spewed out large amounts of black, poisonous smoke that swept towards Zhou like a flood. Chapter 459. A purple bell appeared in Zhou hand as he shook it at the black dragon. The billowing black, poisonous smoke was sucked into the bell. The black dragon was somewhat taken aback, but it immediately charged at Zhou. It opened its mouth wide in a bid to devour Zhou. Zhou shook the bell in his hand as black, poisonous smoke spewed out from the bell, sweeping back the poisonous smoke that the black dragon had spewed out. At the same time, he used ghost steps to quickly move away. 2 seconds. Zhou counted inwardly. The black dragon charged into the poisonous smoke and temporarily lost its vision. In its anger, it let out a roar that sounded like a thunderclap. The shockwave dispersed the poisonous smoke, and the terrifying shockwave didn't stop as it surged towards Zhou's body. The roar was an area of effect attack. There was no place to dodge, so Zhou could only withstand the strike. He activated the Defy Ancient Sovereign Life Soul and used the Demon Dragon True Body at the same time. When he was done, the shockwave had already arrived in front of him. Bam! Zhou raised his fist to block in front of him as his body was pushed back by the shockwave. His legs left 2 deep marks that were dozens of meters long on the ground. The black dragon seemed to sense something and didn't chase after Zhou. It turned around and wanted to rush back. Zhou knew that Sheng had already reached the vicinity of the golden apple tree and had attracted the black dragon's attention. It wanted to return to protect the golden apple. Zhou naturally couldn't let it leave, or Sheng's life would definitely be in danger. Just as the black dragon was about to fly away, a purple beam flew over from the side and slashed at the black dragon's wing. The purple beam was a short purple copper ancient sword. The black dragon's scaled wing was sliced open by the purple copper ancient sword. Good job. Zhou saw a demonic neonate hiding in the grass with a deadpan expression while hugging the scabbard. After the ancient sword injured the black dragon, it flew towards the grass. Roar! The dragon let out an angry roar. It had never suffered such a loss before. Its wing had been injured, and in its rage, it didn't run back. It transformed into a bolt of lightning and charged at Zhou, hoping to devour him before returning to protect the golden apple. The black dragon was so fast that people couldn't even see its huge figure. They could only see a black bolt of lightning streaking across the sky. It was unbelievably fast. However, Zhou was already used to this speed. He had to grind mythical creatures every day. Although the snake was slightly slower than the black dragon, it wasn't much slower. As for the other mythical creature, it was even faster than the black dragon. Zhou remained calm, as usual. His demon dragon true body erupted with terrifying speed as he charged into the sea. In the sky, he was no match for the black dragon. But in the sea, the winged dragon was not as agile as him. Those huge wings would become an obstacle to its movement in the water. Upon seeing Zhou rush into the water, the black dragon hesitated for a moment and didn't chase after him. It looked like it wanted to turn around and return to the golden apple tree. 3 seconds. As Zhou counted silently, he emerged from the water and switched back to Slaughterer. He held the banana fan and fanned it 3 times at the black dragon. The 3 grand winds stirred up huge waves that swept towards the black dragon in the sky. One wave after another struck its body. On the other side, demonic neonate was also hiding in the shadows. She launched another ancient sword attack and attacked the black dragon from the front and back with Zhou. The black dragon had previously been injured by the ancient sword. Now that it saw the purple light flying over and the waves surging, its ferocity was completely stimulated. Black gas surged from its body as its body emitted a metallic luster. 2 pairs of wings appeared on its back as it transformed into a black 6-winged dragon. Its body burned with black flames as it flapped its 6 wings at the same time. The black flames erupted like a volcano, blocking the grand winds and sending the ancient sword flying. The black six-winged dragon that resembled a demonic dragon had black flames burning in its eyes. It was like a devilish abyss as it swooped down. Its speed increased once again to an unbelievable level, preventing Zhou Wen from even reacting. This change was something he hadn't detected previously, but Zhou Wen had already expected an accident. He wasn't completely unprepared. At the instant the black six-winged dragon rushed into the sea, Zhou Wen had already used Lost Country to teleport away. Boom! A wave hundreds of feet tall exploded on the surface of the sea as the gigantic black six-winged dragon charged into the sea. The black flames on its body could actually burn in the sea, unaffected by the seawater at all. Instead, a large amount of seawater evaporated. The distance of Lost Country's teleportation was limited. After Zhou Wen teleported, he was still sent flying by the shockwave from the black six-winged dragon's body. Blood seeped out of his mouth, ears, eyes, and nose as though his bones were about to shatter. The black six-winged dragon discovered Zhou Wen's traces and immediately rushed over. Its speed was still very fast, but it was no longer as indiscernible as before. Clearly, the resistance of the seawater had caused it considerable trouble. Behind it, a turbulent white bubble formed. It was formed by the flapping of its 3 pairs of wings. Zhou Wen knew that the more bubbles there were, the greater the resistance it faced. He immediately switched back to the inverse ancient sovereign state. Combining the demon dragon true body with the 9 dragons art movement technique, he constantly moved in the seawater to dodge the black six-winged dragon's attacks. For seconds, Zhou Wen felt like time was passing like a year. The demon dragon true body had greatly increased his primordial energy expenditure, but in such a battle, it was impossible for him to switch back. As long as he slowed down, he would definitely be devoured by the black six-winged dragon. After failing to catch up to Zhou Wen several times in a row, the black six-winged dragon flew into a rage once again. The dragon's scales on its body stood up like an angry rooster. Suddenly, the scales bloomed like lotus flowers. Countless scales flew in all directions, slicing through the seawater and instantly arriving in front of Zhou Wen. There were so many scales that Zhou Wen had nowhere to dodge. All he could do was grit his teeth and grip the Overlord sword and bamboo blade tightly as he slashed forward. The Overlord sword and bamboo blade slashed to the scales. With the power of the demon dragon true body, he managed to shatter the 2 scales in front of him. However, the scales behind them shot over like a hail of bullets. Zhou Wen desperately brandished his saber and sword to block, but he failed to block them all. Scales streaked across his body, immediately slicing open the mutated stone cheese armor. Even the flesh and bones inside were sliced open. Blood immediately dyed the seawater red. Zhou Wen's body flew backward, leaving a long trail of blood in the sea like a blood dragon. 5 seconds. The demon dragon true body had automatically lost its effect, so Zhou Wen could only switch back to Slaughterer. Although his primordial energy was instantly restored, the injuries on his body were real, and he no longer had the chance to switch back to the demon dragon true body. This was because the black six-winged dragon had already broken through the seawater and charged over like a primordial beast. If Zhou Wen switched back to the inverse ancient sovereign and used the demon dragon true body, the instant his body stiffened was enough for the black six-winged dragon to kill him hundreds of times. Forcefully activating the Sigh of the King, a powerful force immediately filled his body, but it also made his injured body feel even more pain. Without fighting the black six-winged dragon, Zhou Wen used ghost steps with all his might and charged out of the sea like a cannonball. He continuously used ghost steps in midair and moved towards the beach. The Sigh of the King lasted for a limited amount of time. Zhou Wen's body couldn't withstand such a powerful force. It wasn't enough for him to kill a mythical creature in battle. If the mythical creature didn't die, he would self-destruct. The black six-winged dragon rushed out as well. In midair, its speed immediately soared. Even with Zhou Wen using the Sigh of the King, it quickly closed the distance between them. The dragon's roar sounded behind him As Zhou, one could already hear a terrifying shockwave roar towards him. With Overlord sword in hand, Zhou slashed out a demonic astral wheel. With the augmentation of the Sigh of the King, the blood-red sword beam slashed apart the shockwave and cleaved at the black six-winged dragon's head. The black six-winged dragon actually flapped its wings and dodged the demonic astral wheel. From this, it could be seen that even it was somewhat afraid of the augmentation of the Sigh of the King. It didn't use its body to forcefully block it like before. After dodging the demonic astral wheel, the black six-winged dragon chased after him again. But to its surprise, the demonic astral wheel flew back and slashed at its wings. Immediately, another wound appeared on its wings as dragon blood immediately flowed out. With Ever Victorious combined with the power of the Sigh of the King, even the black six-winged dragon couldn't withstand it and was injured. However, such a wound was nothing to the black six-winged dragon. It only made it even more furious as it crazily chased after Zhou. 6 seconds. Zhou was still counting. Suddenly, a long howl sounded from the golden apple tree. Zhou knew that Shang had succeeded. This was the signal that he had succeeded. Zhou fled without any regard for his life, but the black six-winged dragon was getting closer and closer. Zhou fanned the banana fan in his hand at the black six-winged dragon, but it only managed to slow down the furious black six-winged dragon's charge slightly. In the dark, demonic neonate controlled the ancient sword to stab at the black six-winged dragon again, but this time, it didn't dodge and continued chasing after Zhou. The ancient sword stabbed into its neck, and the blade sank into its flesh. However, the black six-winged dragon didn't seem to feel anything as it chased after him again. As for Zhou's body, he couldn't withstand the power of the Sigh of the King. All his bones were crushed to the point of shattering. His eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and the wounds on his body were constantly bleeding. Damn it! Zhou realized that he couldn't escape the crazy black six-winged dragon. I have to risk my life. Zhou gritted his teeth. He knew that he had to risk his life this time. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to escape death today. And Shang grabbed the golden apple and rushed over frantically, but he was too far away. It was already too late. Seeing that the furious black six-winged dragon had already caught up to Zhou, he suddenly stopped. He held the saber in one hand and the sword in the other. The power of the Sigh of the King completely erupted. Ignoring the fact that his body would explode, he slashed at the black six-winged dragon with his saber and sword. The Sky Mortal flew out as sword flashes and saber flashes constantly flickered, transforming into streams of light that streaked across the black six-winged dragon's body. The black six-winged dragon roared at the sky as its 6 wings flapped crazily. Like demonic blades, it blocked Zhou saber flashes and sword shadows. Bam! Zhou body flew out like a bullet and slammed into a mountain wall 1,000 meters away. He left a huge hole in the mountain wall as half of the mountain wall shattered and collapsed. As for the black six-winged dragon on the other side, 4 of its 6 wings had been severed. There was still 1.5 attached to its back. Only 1 was intact. Chapter 460. Zhou felt as though all his bones had fractured and his organs were bleeding. After struggling a few times, he failed to stand up. The black six-winged dragon stared at Zhou, its eyes filled with anger and killing intent. In the next second, the black six-winged dragon opened its mouth and spewed out demonic flames that resembled a volcanic eruption. The enraged black six-winged dragon spewed out demonic flames that could destroy almost everything. Ignoring the fact that Zhou was heavily injured and unable to resist, even if he wasn't injured, he might not have been able to withstand the strike. Zhou could only watch helplessly as the demonic flames spewed out at him. He was powerless to resist, and Shang was still about 1,000 meters away from Zhou. His expression was abnormally solemn as he placed the golden apple in his hand on ground. Primordial energy erupted from his body as his hands made a strange gesture. A spiritual light flashed between his brows. In an instant, and Shung's figure blurred as though he had turned into a phantom. However, that was only for an instant. Soon, his figure turned corporeal again, but he was no longer in Shung. He had turned into the heavily injured Zhou Wen, and Shung appeared at the spot where Zhou Wen had previously been. Boom! The black six-winged dragons, terrifying demonic flames, struck and Shung directly. Even a mountain wall behind him was blasted into pieces. Large swathes of the mountain wall cracked and fell, sending dust and gravel flying. Ah Shung! Zhou Wen was alarmed as he struggled to stand up, but he fell to the ground several times. When the dust settled, and Shung's body was covered in blood amid the rubble. His armor had been shattered. He pressed his hands against the ground and staggered to his feet. The enraged black six-winged dragon opened its mouth to spew out flames again. Zhou Wen no longer had any combat strength, and Shung's situation wasn't optimistic either. All he could do was grit his teeth and summon Banana Fairy to use the Grand Een Wind to blow at the black six-winged dragon. When the black six-winged dragon sensed the Grand Een Wind, it turned its head and spat out a mouthful of demonic flames. It collided with the Grand Een Wind and immediately dispersed it. Banana Fairy was sent tumbling far away in the air. She was like a leaf dancing in the wind. The black six-winged dragon also turned its head and looked at Zhou Wen. Finally, its gaze locked onto him, its eyes filled with bone-chilling hatred. It dragged its broken wings and walked towards Zhou Wen step by step. From the looks of it, it wanted to devour Zhou Wen alive to vent the hatred in its heart. And Shung summoned his bow and arrows and shot them at the six-winged dragon. However, the six-winged dragon ignored him as the arrows pierced deep into the wound on its back. However, the black six-winged dragon ignored him completely. It continued walking towards Zhou Wen as though there was nothing else in its eyes other than Zhou Wen. Golden apple, throw the golden apple away. And Shung shouted at Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen grabbed the golden apple on the ground and threw it into the distance, but the black six-winged dragon didn't even look at it. It firmly walked towards Zhou Wen, who found it difficult to even stand up. It opened its mouth and bared its terrifying fangs. From the looks of it, I won't be able to escape today. I should have known that I shouldn't have entered a dimensional zone in real life. Every time I enter a dimensional zone in real life, something happens. Could it be that I'm fated to clash with a dimensional zone? Zhou Wen thought in a self-deprecating manner, and Shen constantly attacked the black six-winged dragon, hoping to attract its attention. However, the black six-winged dragon hated Zhou Wen to the core and ignored his attacks. Although Shung's attacks caused some injuries to the black six-winged dragon's body, they were unable to seriously injure it. Roar! The black six-winged dragon had already rushed in front of Zhou Wen and opened its mouth to devour him. Zhou Wen's mind raced, but he couldn't think of a way to survive. Shung summoned a sword and leaped onto the black six-winged dragon's back. He stabbed the sword into its wound, but the black six-winged dragon didn't seem to notice. Its eyes burned with killing intent as it didn't spew out demonic flames. It wanted to chew on Zhou Wen's flesh to appease its anger. Just as Zhou Wen was about to be devoured, he saw a figure suddenly appear in front of him, blocking the black six-winged dragon's fang-filled mouth. Zhang Yuji, are you crazy? Zhou Wen couldn't help but shout when he saw that the person blocking him was Zhang Yuji. Zhang Yuji stood in front of Zhou Wen without any intention of retreating. She clasped her hands together and placed them on her chest. As though she was praying, she looked at the black six-winged dragon and said, "Please, don't hurt him, all right? What's the point of begging it? Quickly scram." Zhou Wen thought to himself, "Aren't you courting death? With your tiny body, you're just a side dish for the black six-winged dragon. Won't it still swallow both of you in one bite?" However, to Zhou Wen's surprise, the black six-winged dragon didn't bite down directly. It looked at Zhang Yuji with some hesitation. Zhou Wen and Shung looked at Zhang Yuji in shock. Shung also stopped the sword in his hand, afraid that he would anger the black six-winged dragon. Zhang Yuji approached the black six-winged dragon and pressed her hand on its face. She said gently, "Please don't be angry, all right?" The The black six-winged dragon stared at Zhang Yuji and let out a deep whimper, as though it would fly into a rage and devour Zhang Yuji at any moment. However, it didn't move, as though it was hesitating. Pooh! Suddenly, a sanguine beam bloomed in front of the black six-winged dragon's chest. Dragon blood spewed out like a fountain as a purple beam of light spewed out along with the blood. It was none other than demonic Neonate's ancient sword. Previously, the black six-winged dragon had ignored the ancient sword that had stabbed into its neck. However, at some point in time, the ancient sword had stabbed into its body and burrowed into its heart. At this moment, it tore out of its heart and immediately severely injured the black six-winged dragon. Boom! The demonic flames on the black six-winged dragon's body erupted as the terrifying power reduced everything within a radius of 1,000 meters to ruins. And Sheng's first reaction was to flash in front of Zhou Wan and raise a shield to block the terrifying demonic flames. The shield instantly shattered and turned to dust. And Sheng held Zhou Wan with one hand and pressed the ground with the other. He instantly burrowed into the ground with Zhou Wan. However, the terrifying power reduced the ground to dust. Zhou Wan felt in Sheng, who was above him, slam heavily into him. Then, the two of them were sent flying. In the next second, they felt large amounts of cold seawater pour in. When the terrifying demonic flames stopped erupting, half of the island had been destroyed, forming a deep crater with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters. Seawater poured in as Zhou Wan and Sheng barely floated to the surface. It was Banana Fairy who had pulled them out of the seawater. The two of them were basically half dead. Their gazes landed on the spot where the black six-winged dragon was. Only the ground there hadn't been destroyed. It stood in the middle of the crater like a stone pillar. The black six-winged dragon stood there and looked in front of it. It stared at Zhang Yuji with a strange look in its eyes. Zhang Yuji was so close to the black six-winged dragon, but she wasn't injured at all. From the looks of it, it was likely that the black six-winged dragon had managed to avoid her when it unleashed its power. Sorry. Zhang Yuji hugged the black six-winged dragon's chin and cried. Boom! The black six-winged dragon's body collapsed to the ground as its vitality gradually dissipated. However, its eyes didn't close as it stared at Zhang Yuji. There seemed to be puzzlement, sadness, and anger in its eyes. It was indescribably complicated. Banana Fairy tried her best to pull Zhou Wan and Sheng to the platform. The two of them were covered in injuries, but after being washed by the seawater, there wasn't much blood on their bodies. However, after falling to the ground, they didn't even have the strength to sit up. Their bodies were in excruciating pain. Chapter 461. To lure the tiger away from the mountain, it had to be far enough away. Now, as long as they approached the golden apple tree, they would be killed by the dragon. Therefore, this plan was clearly useless. What do you think? And Sheng asked Zhou Wan. Zhou Wan thought for a moment and said, It's definitely impossible to fight it head-on. The chances of death are too high. We can only think of other solutions. After a pause, Zhou Wan continued, I have an idea. If I have a way to hold back that dark dragon for a few seconds, do you have the confidence to pluck the golden apple? How many seconds can you last? And Sheng asked after some thought. At most 10 seconds, at least 5. However, before that, I need to use my companion beast to confirm it again to determine the exact time, Zhou Wan said after serious consideration. If you can hold it back for 6 seconds, I can pluck the golden apple, and Sheng said after careful inference. Then let's give it a try. Zhou Wan planned on trying out the black dragon's abilities. I still have quite a number of companion beasts on me. I'll try a few more times. I have to test the black dragon's abilities before taking action, and Sheng said. Can I do anything? Zhang Yuji asked. Please cheer us on here, and Sheng said to her. All right, I'll cheer you on. Zhang Yuji didn't plan on really becoming a dragon-slaying warrior. Furthermore, she was only at the legendary stage, inferior to Zhou Wan and company. She had only been joking previously. Zhou Wan and Sheng left the cave again and found a hidden spot to summon their companion beasts. They got their companion beasts to stay in different spots. After everything was set up, the companion beasts attacked the black dragon from different spots. And Shang had endless companion beasts. Zhou had quite a number of companion beasts as well, but their companion beasts were basically like meat buns that never returned. Zhou used the blood threadworms to secretly burrow into the black dragon's body, but the moment they burrowed into its skin, they automatically died. There was also the epic poison bat. After it flew over, it was swallowed by the black dragon. The two of them sacrificed at least 30 to 40 companion beasts. None of them could last more than 5 seconds in front of the black dragon. This made them fully realize how terrifying the black dragon was. Of course, this was also because the two of them couldn't bear to use their beloved companion beasts. They only used some cannon fodder companion beasts. However, the different attacks of the various companion beasts made the black dragon use some of its abilities, allowing Zhou and Shang to have a clearer understanding of the black dragon. Its speed is far faster than ours. There's no need to mention its strength. My strength-type epic companion beast was easily crushed by it. Furthermore, it isn't afraid of wind, fire, lightning, and has very high resistance. It doesn't spew fire, but it can spew poisonous smoke. And Shang mentioned the results of his observations before looking at Zhou and asking, "What do you think? How many seconds can it last? I'd rather underestimate it than overestimate it." 7 seconds. Zhou carefully calculated many times in his mind and considered his various abilities. Finally, he gave such a conservative number. "That's enough. Let's finish the plan first. I'll hide near the apple tree. My limit should be within 500 meters. Then, use your companion beast to lure it away and think of a way to hold it back for 7 seconds. Leave the rest to me," and Shang said as he drew on the ground, explaining the entire plan. "Remember, we only have one chance. Failure means death," and Shang said to Zhou as he prepared to leave the cave. "Understood." Zhou nodded solemnly. The two of them left the cave, according to the plan, and Shang secretly approached the apple tree. His ability to converge his aura and disguise were very good. Zhou watched and Shang advance on the grass, almost unable to tell the difference between him and the grass. The closer he got to the black dragon, the slower and Shang's speed became. It was as though he was moving in slow motion. A few hours later, and Shang was about 400 meters away from the apple tree when the black dragon's ears suddenly twitched. Zhou and Shang's hearts leaped to their throats. And Shang lay there motionless, while Zhou's heart raced. He even forgot to breathe. After a while, the black dragon's ears drooped down again. Only then did Zhou feel a little better. However, and Shang was extremely bold. He continued crawling forward another 20 to 30 meters, almost making Zhou's heart stop. Zhou knew that with every centimeter and Shang approached the black dragon, the risk of being exposed increased. He had originally planned to stop about 500 meters from the apple tree, but now he was within 400 meters. This was in Shang using his danger to reduce Zhou's risk. The closer he was to the apple tree, the faster he could approach the golden apple. The earlier the black dragon would turn around to chase after him, reducing Zhou's risk. Finally, and Shang made the agreed gesture. Zhou heaved a long sigh of relief, knowing that it was time for him to appear. After retreating to the edge of the island, Zhou summoned his companion beast and made sufficient preparations. Then, he roared into the sky, "Giant lizard, I'm here. Come and eat me." The black dragon, who was resting under the golden apple tree, immediately pricked up its ears when it heard Zhou shout. It stood up, and after confirming its location, it flapped its wings and instantly tore through the air, charging toward Zhou. Black lightning streaked across the sky and appeared in Zhou's line of sight almost instantly. Zhou summoned a row of golden warriors to block the black dragon. These were originally food left for Tyrant Behemoth after they were spawned, but later on, Tyrant Behemoth directly ate primordial crystals, so there was no point in keeping them. The black dragon charged over like lightning, sending the golden warriors flying everywhere. Zhou slashed out with bamboo blade in one hand and overlord sword in the other. The demonic astral wheel and feng wheel sword flash crisscrossed as they slashed at the black dragon's head. A black beam shot out from the black dragon's eyes, blasting the demonic astral wheel and feng wheel sword flash apart. However, its body didn't stop as it charged at Zhou. Zhou activated ghost steps and instantly moved more than 10 meters to the left. At the same time, he counted inwardly. 1 second, on the other side, and Sheng had already charged towards a golden apple tree like a ghost. His speed was equally terrifying. The black dragon's speed was even faster than Zhou when he used ghost steps. With a flap of its wings, its huge body nimbly drew an L shape in the air as it caught up to Zhou. It spewed out large amounts of black poisonous smoke that swept towards Zhou like a flood. Chapter 462. A purple bell appeared in Zhou hand as he shook it at the black dragon. The billowing black poisonous smoke was sucked into the bell. The black dragon was somewhat taken aback, but it immediately charged at Zhou. It opened its mouth wide in a bid to devour Zhou. Zhou shook the bell in his hand as black poisonous smoke spewed out from the bell, sweeping back the poisonous smoke that the black dragon had spewed out. At the same time, he used ghost steps to quickly move away. 2 seconds. Zhou counted inwardly. The black dragon charged into the poisonous smoke and temporarily lost its vision. In its anger, it let out a roar that sounded like a thunderclap. The shockwave dispersed the poisonous smoke, and the terrifying shockwave didn't stop as it surged towards Zhou's body. The roar was an area of effect attack. There was nowhere to dodge, so Zhou could only take the blow head-on. He activated the Defy Ancient Sovereign Life Soul and used the Demon Dragon True Body at the same time. When he was done, the shockwave had already arrived in front of him. Bam! Zhou raised his fist to block in front of him as his body was pushed back by the force of the shockwave. His legs left 2 deep marks that were dozens of meters long on the ground. The black dragon seemed to sense something and didn't chase after Zhou. It turned around and wanted to rush back. Zhou knew that Sheng had already reached the vicinity of the golden apple tree and had attracted the black dragon's attention. It was returning to protect the golden apple. Zhou naturally couldn't let it leave, or Sheng's life would definitely be in danger. Just as the black dragon was about to fly away, a purple beam flew over from the side and slashed at the black dragon's wing. The purple beam was a short purple copper ancient sword. The black dragon's scaled wing was sliced open by the purple copper ancient sword. Well done. Zhou saw demonic neonate hiding in the grass with a deadpan expression while hugging the scabbard. After the ancient sword injured the black dragon, it flew towards the grass. Roar! The dragon let out an angry roar. It had never suffered such a loss before. Its wing had been injured, and in its rage, it didn't run back. It transformed into a bolt of lightning and charged at Zhou, hoping to devour him before returning to protect the golden apple. The black dragon was so fast that no one could see its massive figure. All they saw was a black bolt of lightning traversing the void. It was unbelievably fast. However, Zhou was already used to this speed. He had to grind mythical creatures every day. Although the snake was slightly slower than the black dragon, it wasn't much slower. As for the other mythical creature, it was even faster than the black dragon. Zhou remained calm, as usual. His demon dragon true body unleashed a terrifying speed as he charged into the sea. In the sky, he wasn't the black dragon's match, but in the sea, the winged dragon wasn't as agile as him. Its huge wings became an obstacle to its movements in the water. Seeing Zhou rush into the water, the black dragon hesitated for a moment and didn't chase after him. It looked like it wanted to turn around and return to the golden apple tree. 3 seconds. As Zhou counted silently, he burrowed out of the water and switched back to Slaughterer. He held the banana fan and fanned it 3 times at the black dragon. The 3 grand winds stirred up huge waves that swept towards the black dragon in the sky. One wave after another struck its body. On the other side, demonic neonate was also hiding in the shadows. She launched another ancient sword attack and attacked the black dragon from the front and back with Zhou. The black dragon had previously been injured by the ancient sword. Now that it saw the purple light flying over and the waves surging, its ferocity was completely stimulated. Black gas surged from its body as its body emitted a metallic luster. Two pairs of wings appeared on its back as it transformed into a six-winged black dragon. Its body burned with black flames as it flapped its six wings at the same time. The black flames erupted like a volcano, blocking the Grandine winds and sending the ancient sword flying. The black six-winged dragon that resembled a demonic dragon had black flames burning in its eyes. It was like a devilish abyss as it swooped down. Its speed increased once again to an unbelievable level, preventing Zhou from even reacting. This change was something he hadn't detected previously, but Zhou had already expected an accident. He wasn't completely unprepared. At the instant the black six-winged dragon rushed into the sea, Zhou had already used Lost Country to teleport away. Boom! A wave hundreds of feet tall exploded on the surface of the sea as the gigantic black six-winged dragon charged into the sea. The black flames on its body could actually burn in the sea, completely unaffected by the seawater. Instead, a large amount of the seawater evaporated. The distance of Lost Country's teleportation was limited. After Zhou, when teleported, he was still sent flying by the shockwave from the black six-winged dragon's body. Blood seeped out of his mouth, ears, eyes, and nose as though his bones were about to shatter. The black six-winged dragon discovered Zhou's traces and immediately rushed over. Its speed was still very fast, but it was no longer as indiscernible as before. Clearly, the resistance of the seawater had caused it considerable trouble. Behind it, a turbulent white bubble formed. It was formed by the flapping of its three pairs of wings. Zhou knew that the more bubbles there were, the greater the resistance it faced. He immediately switched back to the inverse ancient sovereign state. Combining the demon dragon true body with the nine dragons art movement technique, he constantly moved in the seawater to dodge the black six-winged dragon's attacks. For seconds, Zhou felt like time was passing like a year. The demon dragon true body had greatly increased his primordial energy expenditure, but in such a battle, it was impossible for him to switch back. As long as he slowed down, he would definitely be devoured by the black six-winged dragon. After failing to catch up to Zhou when several times in a row, the black six-winged dragon flew into a rage once again. The dragon scales on its body stood up like an angry rooster. Suddenly, the scales bloomed like a lotus flower. Countless scales flew in all directions, slicing through the seawater and instantly arriving in front of Zhou. There were just too many scales. Zhou had nowhere to dodge. All he could do was grit his teeth and grip the Overlord sword and bamboo blade tightly as he slashed forward. The Overlord sword and bamboo blade slashed at the scales. With the power of the demon dragon true body, he managed to shatter the two scales in front. However, the scales behind them shot over like a hail of bullets. Zhou desperately brandished his saber and sword to block, but he failed to block all of them. Scales streaked across his body, immediately slicing open the mutated stone cheese armor. Even the flesh and bones inside were sliced open. Blood immediately dyed the seawater red. Zhou's body flew backward, leaving a long trail of blood in the sea like a blood dragon. 5 seconds. The demon dragon true body had automatically lost its effect, so Zhou could only switch back to Slaughterer. Although his primordial energy was instantly restored, the injuries on his body were real, and he no longer had the chance to switch back to the demon dragon true body. This was because the black six-winged dragon had already broken through the seawater and charged over like a primordial beast. If Zhou switched back to the inverse ancient sovereign and used the demon dragon true body, the instant his body stiffened was enough for the black six-winged dragon to kill him hundreds of times. Forcefully activating the Sigh of the King, a powerful force immediately filled his body, but it also made his injured body feel even more pain. Without fighting the black six-winged dragon, Zhou used ghost steps with all his might and charged out of the sea like a cannonball. He continuously used ghost steps in midair and moved towards the beach. The sigh of the king lasted for a limited amount of time. Zhou body couldn't withstand such a powerful force. It wasn't enough for him to kill a mythical creature in battle. If the mythical creature didn't die, he would self-destruct. The black six-winged dragon rushed out as well. In midair, its speed immediately soared. Even with Zhou when using the sigh of the king, it quickly closed the distance between them. The dragon's roar sounded behind him as Zhou could already hear a terrifying shockwave roar towards him. With Overlord sword in hand, Zhou slashed out a demonic astral wheel. With the augmentation of the sigh of the king, the blood-red sword beam slashed apart the shockwave and cleaved at the black six-winged dragon's head. The black six-winged dragon actually flapped its wings and dodged the demonic astral wheel. It was obvious that even it was somewhat afraid of the augmentation of the sigh of the king. It didn't use its body to forcefully block it like before. After dodging the demonic astral wheel, the black six-winged dragon chased after him again, but to its surprise, the demonic astral wheel flew back and slashed at its wings. Immediately, another wound appeared on its wings as dragon blood immediately flowed out. With Ever Victorious combined with the power of the sigh of the king, even the black six-winged dragon couldn't withstand it and was injured. However, such a wound was nothing to the black six-winged dragon. It only made it even more furious as it crazily chased after Zhou. 6 seconds. Zhou was still counting. Suddenly, a long howl sounded from the golden apple tree. Zhou knew that Sheng had succeeded. This was the signal that he had succeeded. Zhou fled without any regard for his life, but the black six-winged dragon was getting closer and closer. Zhou fanned the banana fan in his hand at the black six-winged dragon, but all he could do was slow down the furious black six-winged dragon's charge slightly. In the dark, demonic neonate controlled the ancient sword to stab at the black six-winged dragon again, but this time it didn't dodge. It continued pursuing Zhou crazily. The ancient sword stabbed into its neck, and the blade sank into its flesh. However, the black six-winged dragon didn't seem to feel anything as it chased after him again. As for Zhou body, he couldn't withstand the power of the sigh of the king. All his bones were crushed to the point of shattering. His eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and wounds are constantly bleeding. Damn it! Zhou realized that he couldn't escape the crazy black six-winged dragon. I'm going all out. Zhou gritted his teeth. He knew that he really had to risk his life this time. He had to put himself in a desperate situation. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to escape death today. And Sheng grabbed the golden apple and rushed over frantically, but he was too far away. It was already too late. Seeing that the furious black six-winged dragon had already caught up to Zhou, he suddenly stopped. He held the saber in one hand and the sword in the other. The power of the sigh of the king completely erupted. Ignoring the fact that his body would explode, he slashed at the black six-winged dragon with the saber and sword. Chapter 463. Zhou felt as though all his bones had broken and his organs were bleeding. He struggled a few times, but he failed to stand up. The black six-winged dragon stared at Zhou, its eyes filled with anger and killing intent. In the next second, the black six-winged dragon opened its mouth and spewed out demonic flames that resembled a volcanic eruption. In its rage, the demonic flames spewed out could destroy everything. Ignoring the fact that Zhou was heavily injured and unable to resist, even if he wasn't injured, he might not have been able to withstand the strike. Zhou could only watch helplessly as the demonic flames spewed out at him. He was powerless to resist, and Sheng was still about a kilometer away from Zhou. His expression was abnormally solemn as he placed the golden apple in his hand on the ground. Primordial energy erupted from his body as he made a strange gesture with his hands. A spiritual light flashed between his brows. In an instant, Shung's figure blurred as though he had turned into a phantom. However, that was only for an instant. Soon his figure turned corporeal again, but he was no longer Shung. He had turned into the heavily injured Zhou Wen. Shung appeared at the spot where Zhou Wen had previously been. Boom! The terrifying demonic flames of the black six-winged dragon struck Shung directly. Even a mountain wall behind him was blasted into pieces. Large swathes of the mountain wall crumbled as dust and rubble scattered. Shung! Zhou Wen was alarmed as he struggled to stand up, but he fell to the ground several times. When the dust dissipated, Shung was covered in blood amid the rubble. His armor had shattered as he pressed his hands against the ground and stood up shakily. The enraged black six-winged dragon opened its mouth, wanting to spew out flames again. Zhou Wen no longer had any combat strength, and Shung's situation wasn't looking good either. All he could do was grit his teeth and summon Banana Fairy, allowing her to use the grand wind to blow at the black six-winged dragon. When the black six-winged dragon sensed the grand wind, it turned its head and spat out a mouthful of demonic flames. It collided with the grand wind and immediately dispersed it. Banana Fairy was sent tumbling far away in the air. She was like a leaf dancing in the wind. The black six-winged dragon also turned its head and looked at Zhou Wen. Finally, its gaze locked onto him, its eyes filled with bone-chilling hatred. It dragged its broken wings and walked towards Zhou Wen step by step. From the looks of it, it wanted to devour Zhou Wen alive to vent the hatred in its heart. Shung summoned his bow and arrows and shot them at the six-winged dragon, but the six-winged dragon ignored them. The arrows pierced the wound on its back and stabbed deep into it. However, the black six-winged dragon ignored him completely. Suddenly, a sanguine beam bloomed in front of the black six-winged dragon's chest. Dragon blood spewed out like a fountain as a purple beam of light spewed out along with the blood. It was none other than demonic Neonate's ancient sword. Previously, the black six-winged dragon had ignored the ancient sword that had stabbed into its neck. However, at some point in time, the ancient sword had stabbed into its body and burrowed into its heart. At that moment, it tore out of its heart and immediately severely injured the black six-winged dragon. Boom! The demonic flames on the black six-winged dragon's body erupted as a terrifying force reduced everything within 1,000 meters to ruins. Shung's first reaction was to flash in front of Zhou Wen and raise a shield to block the terrifying demonic flames. The shield instantly shattered and turned to dust. Shung grabbed Zhou Wen with one hand and pressed the ground with the other. She instantly burrowed into the ground with Zhou Wen. However, the terrifying force reduced the ground to dust. Zhou Wen felt Shung, who was above him, slam heavily into him. Then, the two of them were sent flying. In the next second, they felt large amounts of cold seawater pour in. When the terrifying demonic flames stopped erupting, half of the island had been destroyed, forming a deep crater with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters. Seawater poured in as Zhou Wen and Shung barely floated to the surface. It was Banana Fairy who pulled them out of the seawater. The two of them were basically half dead. Their gazes landed on the spot where the black six-winged dragon was. Only the ground there hadn't been destroyed. It stood in the middle of the crater like a stone pillar. The black six-winged dragon stood there and looked in front of it. It was Zhang Yuji who was staring at it with a strange look in its eyes. Zhang Yuji was so close to the black six-winged dragon, but she wasn't injured at all. From the looks of it, it was likely that the black six-winged dragon had released its strength under such circumstances and still managed to avoid her. I'm sorry. Zhang Yuji hugged the black six-winged dragon's chin as she sobbed. Boom! The black six-winged dragon's body collapsed to the ground as its vitality gradually dissipated. However, its eyes didn't close as it stared at Zhang Yuji. There seemed to be puzzlement, sadness, and anger in its eyes. It was indescribably complicated. Banana Fairy tried her best to pull Zhou Wan and Sheng to the platform. The two of them were covered in injuries, but after being washed by the seawater, there wasn't much blood on their bodies. However, after falling to the ground, they didn't even have the strength to sit up. Their bodies were in excruciating pain. Today, Lucas has to entertain fans from the East District, so I'll be taking my leave. With that said, he snapped his fingers handsomely. A companion beast that looked like a dinosaur appeared in front of him. He flew up and waved at Zhou Wan and Sheng. Don't be shy, and don't be too surprised. Try riding the Tyrannosaurus Rex. This is the gift you deserve. Lucas! Lucas! A group of fans cheered. They were even clapping for the lucky Zhou Wan and Sheng, as though they were encouraging them to be braver. Zhou Wan and Sheng looked at each other before Sheng nodded. They flipped onto the back of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Lucas patted the Tyrannosaurus Rex's head handsomely. Old pal, let's set off. The Tyrannosaurus Rex roared cooperatively, causing the young fans to cheer crazily. Then, it ran towards the other side of the street. Zhou Wan and Sheng were dumbfounded. They had heard Lucas talk for so long at the entrance of the temple and imagined that he was going in to explore it. To their surprise, he didn't enter the temple and rode the Tyrannosaurus Rex down the street. Many youths from the Peninsula of Gods cheered when they saw him. Lucas also greeted them handsomely. Is this fellow a celebrity or an epic expert? Zhou Wan had an odd expression. After running for a while, the Tyrannosaurus Rex arrived in front of the metalwork temple. Lucas showed his pass and brought Zhou Wan and Sheng in. Didn't you say that only residents of the Peninsula of Gods can enter the metalwork temple? Zhou Wan asked Sheng suspiciously, and Sheng clearly didn't know why Lucas could bring them in. However, Lucas said in a very suave manner, "The great Lucas is the ambassador of the Federation's freelance hunters. On the Peninsula of Gods, only I can bring you in. Now, you should understand how rare this opportunity is, right? The great Lucas, can I take a few photos in front of the metalwork temple's door?" Zhou Wan discovered the tiny palm symbol and hurriedly said to Lucas when they approached the metalwork temple's door, "Haha, you sure are a clever little devil. Do you want to take the opportunity to take a photo with me?" "Of course you can. Today is a special treat for you," Lucas said warmly as he hugged Zhou Wan with his muscular arm. Zhou Wan had no choice but to take a few photos with Lucas. Then, while Sheng and Lucas were taking a photo, he used his mysterious phone to take a photo of the tiny palm symbol. He originally thought that he had no hope of entering the metalwork temple, but he never expected that he would be able to download the metalwork temple by chance. He really had to thank the great Lucas. After the photo was over, Lucas led them into the metalwork temple. The inside of the temple was like a forging field. There were forging machines everywhere. There were huge steel-making furnaces, workbenches, and some equipment that Zhou Wan couldn't name. However, the steel-making furnaces were steaming hot. There was actually metal that had been melted into liquid boiling. From time to time, one could see fire sprites jumping around inside. "Is that a fire elemental sprite?" Zhou Wan asked as he pointed at a scarlet ball of fire. "Something like that. However, its correct name should be Steel Cauldron Fire Sprite. It's a type of elemental sprite. It has a very high temperature and can spit out high-temperature flames. It's a very powerful legendary creature," Lucas said as he summoned a long-handled axe. As Lucas spoke, he summoned a long-handled axe in his hand and rode the Tyrannosaurus over. With a cool slash, he slashed the Steel Cauldron Fire Sprite, causing sparks to fly as it exploded. Lucas raised a shield in his other hand and blocked the sparks, preventing Zhou Wan and Sheng from being affected. The Steel Cauldron Fire Sprite was killed by his axe. Lucas said to them with a smile, "What a pity. No dimensional crystals or companion eggs dropped. From the looks of it, your luck hasn't run out yet." Chapter 465. Lucas rode the Tyrannosaurus and charged through the metalwork temple. He slew several Steel Cauldron Fire Sprites and killed a few dimensional creatures that resembled metal robots. He basically killed them instantly with one strike, making him look rather powerful. However, his luck was clearly very average. After killing more than 10 legendary creatures, only a strength dimensional crystal dropped. It was even at the legendary stage. There's finally something. From the looks of it, your luck isn't too bad. Take it. Don't stand on ceremony with the great Lucas. This is what you deserve. Lucas handed the dimensional crystal to Zhou Wan and took out his phone. He took a selfie of himself and Zhou Wan with the dimensional crystal. Zhou Wan broke out into a sweat as he thought to himself, "This person is considered excellent. There's really nothing too strange in the world. Such a person is actually a famous epic expert on the Peninsula of Gods. It's really unexpected." Lucas led them through the corridors of the palace and constantly killed all sorts of dimensional creatures. However, they were all at the legendary stage. Most of them were steel cauldron fire sprites. Occasionally, some metal robots would appear. Suddenly, a flaming figure that resembled magma appeared in front of them. Zhou immediately recognized it as the epic fire sprite they had encountered previously. Your luck isn't bad. You actually encountered an epic fire sprite. From the looks of it, Lucas has met a true opponent today. Lads, watch the battle from the side. After killing the fire sprite, if it can drop a companion egg, you will really be in luck. Lucas got the two of them to get off the Tyrannosaurus while he rode it towards a fire sprite. The fire sprite was nearly 3 meters tall. Lucas rode the Tyrannosaurus and fought the fire sprite, leaving Zhou when frowning. To be honest, the fire sprite had pretty good fire elemental powers and wasn't afraid of injuries. It was indeed quite strong, but Lucas was one of the famous epic experts on the Peninsula of Gods. He was actually evenly matched with the fire sprite. It looked very fancy. The giant axe struck out in all sorts of ways, and the shield collided with the flames. Coupled with the Tyrannosaurus's roar and the fire sprite's roar, it was like a battle between epic monsters. If this was a movie, Zhou would give a score of 9. 9. The visual effects were pretty good. However, from Zhou point of view, Lucas was too noob. His combat talent was average, and his standards were very limited. With an epic Tyrannosaurus, an epic companion beast weapon, and epic armor, he was actually able to fight a fire sprite. Apart from being a noob, Zhou had no other words to describe him. Is this person really a famous epic expert on the Peninsula of Gods? Zhou asked Ensheng. Yes, I think so. Ensheng's expression was relatively calm. Clearly, he had seen storms before, so he wasn't too surprised. Zhou naturally refused to believe that the Peninsula of Gods was only at this level. If the top epic experts on the Peninsula of Gods were only at this level, the resources here would have long been snatched away by other factions. After fighting for more than half an hour, the intense battle ended with Lucas's victory. However, the fire sprite had also left wounds on his body. Lucas even flaunted his injuries to Zhou and Ensheng and took a selfie as a memento. However, Lucas was really a generous person. The fire sprite dropped an essence energy skill crystal. He actually followed his promise and gave it to Zhou and Ensheng. However, he still very naturally took a photo as a memento. His actions were extremely practiced. Your luck is really good. You actually dropped a fire sprite crystal. This is something good that can only be obtained by killing 100 fire sprites. Lucas stuffed the crystal into Ensheng's hands and asked, "Let's add each other as friends. I'll send you a copy of the photo later. I didn't install this software. Let Zhou add you." Ensheng reacted quickly and threw the blame to Zhou. Zhou wasn't good with words, so he had no choice but to add Lucas as a friend. Then he saw that this fellow had already posted the photo and added some lines. Although I'm a little injured, it's worth it to let the fans from the East District see Lucas's strength and charm. A few of them were photos of him being injured during the battle with the fire sprite, as well as photos of him giving Zhou the crystal. There were all sorts of envious comments. There were all sorts of praise for Lucas's invincibility. This bro, it's really a waste of talent if he doesn't become a celebrity, Zhou thought. Lucas led the two of them to continue hunting dimensional creatures in the Metalwork Temple. He was clearly very familiar with this place. He shuttled back and forth in the spiderweb-like palace corridors and found many-dimensional creatures. Lads, it's time to rest. As a great hunter, you have to know how to enjoy life and strike a balance between work and rest. Only then can you be in your best combat state at all times. As Lucas spoke, he took out a folding chair and table from the box on the Tyrannosaurus's back. There was also a parasol inside. This fellow actually made it seem like he was drinking coffee by the sea. He had placed all sorts of things in the metalwork temple. He even prepared food. It looked very rich. Just as Zhou Wen and Sheng were about to move their mouths, they heard a click. Lucas had taken another selfie before quickly typing a few words and posting it on the internet. Zhou Wen saw Lucas's information from his friend's status updates. It was the picture he had just taken. There was even a paragraph of text, Heroes Intermission. Zhou Wen and Sheng minded their own business as they ate. To be honest, the food that Lucas had brought was pretty good. Zhou Wen had never tried such exotic food before, but he ate quite a bit. As the three of them were eating, they suddenly felt the temperature around them rise. The air, which was already extremely hot due to the existence of the huge steel-making furnaces, was now unbearable. Even their hair was about to burn. Zhou Wen turned his head and saw a dimensional creature burning with flames. It had a pair of butterfly-shaped flaming wings on its back and a flaming crown on its head. It was flying out of another palace. "What's that?" Zhou Wen asked curiously. "No good. It's the Fire Furnace Queen. Come up quickly. Let's go." Lucas was surprisingly fast. He ignored the chairs and tables and jumped onto the Tyrannosaurus's back as he shouted at Zhou Wen and Sheng. "Why are you running? Kill it. It would be great if a companion egg dropped." Zhou Wen had previously heard the passerby mention the Fire Furnace Queen. He knew that it was a mutated epic creature with very powerful fire elemental powers. Furthermore, it was very rare. "I can still fight her alone, but if you stay here, you will definitely be affected. How can the great Lucas let you be injured? After I send you out, I'll fight her again." Before Lucas could finish his sentence, he saw Zhou Wen summon a sword and casually slash out a sword beam. The sword beam tore through the sword and blasted the Fire Furnace Queen's body apart. Flames splattered as a companion egg dropped. The great Lucas gaped as he stared at the Overlord sword in Zhou Wen's hand with widened eyes. His jaw nearly dropped to the ground. Chapter 466. What's wrong with this fellow? He doesn't look 20 years old, right? He should still be a student, right? How can he kill the Fire Furnace Queen so easily? Countless thoughts flashed through Lucas's mind. Isn't that sword light a little too powerful? The Fire Furnace Queen is a very powerful existence at the epic stage, but can't even withstand a single sword beam. That sword must be too powerful. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to have such strength at such a young age. That's not right. Only by advancing to the epic stage can he hatch an epic companion beast. In other words, he's at least at the epic stage. Zhou Wen had already gone over to pick up the Fire Furnace Queen's companion egg. The epic Fire Furnace Queen was still very useful. It had powerful fire elemental abilities and performed well in many human domains. "Lad, your strength isn't bad. You're almost catching up to me. Have you graduated from university?" Lucas laughed as he went forward and asked. He thought to himself, this fellow might just look young and look young. In fact, he's already quite old. It's very likely that he's about the same age as me, in his 30s. "Yes, that must be the case." "Not yet. I'm still in school," Zhou Wen answered. Lucas froze when he heard that. His smile was a little forced as he continued asking, "What year are you in?" However, Lucas was calculating inwardly. "I just graduated from university and advanced to the epic stage at the age of 20. The East District should be the same as our Peninsula of Gods. They're all about 16 or 17 years old. If he's in his 4th year, he should be 20 years old. That means that he advanced to the epic stage at a young age like me." The great Lucas didn't lose. "Freshman," Zhou Wen said as he put away the companion egg. "Do you go to school late?" Lucas couldn't believe that Zhou Wen had advanced to the epic stage at the age of 16 or 17. "Not late. I go to school at a normal age." "Have you held back?" "No." Lucas looked at Zhou Wen with an odd expression. After a while, he wrapped his arm around Joe's shoulder and said, "To have such achievements at such a young age, it looks like you will be as great as Lucas in the future." Joe thought to himself that this person's skin was really thick, but he wasn't a bad person. "Lucas, thank you for your hospitality today. It's time for us to leave. If you have the chance to go to the East District in the future, contact us," Joe said to Lucas. "Where are you going?" "It's on the way anyway. I'll give you a ride." Lucas patted his Tyrannosaurus and thought to himself, "Thankfully, I have such a domineering companion beast mount. This isn't something that can be obtained easily. I spent a lot of money to obtain it. Thank you for your kind intentions, but there's no need. We can return by ourselves," and Shung said as he summoned him out. When Lucas saw the mount clearly, his eyes widened. It was also a Tyrannosaurus. Although its size was similar to his Tyrannosaurus rex, its entire body seemed to be made of metal. It looked like a metal statue, not a living creature. This is an epic-ranked, mutated metal Tyrannosaurus. Lucas had seen the introduction of this mutated metal Tyrannosaurus on the companion beast ranking published by the Federation. It was much stronger than the Tyrannosaurus rex. After Zhou bade and Shung farewell, he rode away on the mutated metal Tyrannosaurus. Lucas snapped to his senses and hurriedly posted the photo of the fire furnace queen's corpse on the internet with a caption. "Today, I hunted a very rare fire furnace queen with my friends in the East District. I was so happy. Your mount isn't bad. Where did you get it?" Zhou asked the mutated metal Tyrannosaurus. "I got it when I went to Jurassic Park Island. There are dinosaurs everywhere there. If you're interested, I'll take you there in the future," and Shung said with a smile. "Let's go to the nearby temples to take a look." Zhou still wanted to go to the other temples to see if there were any tiny palm symbols. It was best if he could download a few dungeons. "Do you want to visit the other temples? It's better to let the great Lucas lead the way. Otherwise, many dimensional zones on the Peninsula of Gods don't allow outsiders to enter." Lucas chased after them on his Tyrannosaurus rex. "How can you be so troublesome?" Zhou said. "What's there to be embarrassed about? We're all friends," Lucas said straightforwardly. Lucas took them to a few more famous dimensional zones in the Peninsula of Gods, such as the God of Light Apollo's music hall. It sounded a little strange, but the Olympian gods usually had many priesthoods, and Apollo was even more talented. He had many priesthoods, and the Temple of Music was just one of them. Zhou found the tiny palm symbol outside the music temple and downloaded it. After that, he went to a few other temples, but Zhou didn't find the tiny palm symbol. In a day, he downloaded a total of 3 dungeons: Metalwork Temple, Music Temple, and Cursed Demon Palace. The first dungeon Zhou, when downloaded, was actually called Cursed Demon Palace. This surprised Zhou. Athena was the goddess of wisdom, and in some legends, she was also the goddess of war. However, the name Curse didn't seem to have anything to do with her. Furthermore, the word Demon Palace clearly wasn't a name a temple of a Lord God should have. This made Zhou realize that the palace didn't belong to the goddess of wisdom. If the people on the Peninsula of Gods treated it as the goddess of wisdom's temple to explore, they would probably suffer greatly. Zhou originally wanted to visit a few more dimensional zones, but after Lucas received a call, he hurriedly bade farewell and left as though there was something urgent. Zhou and Shung had no choice but to return to the hotel. As the Zhang family had already left the Peninsula of Gods, they couldn't hitch a ride back. All they could do was take the Federation Airlines plane back. Just as he was about to book the plane tickets, Zhou received a call from Lucas. "Dear friend, if the police ask you to return to assist in the investigation, don't panic. It's just to assist in the investigation. I'll rush to the police station to testify for you," Lucas said without any rhyme or reason. "What happened? Why were we taken by the police to assist in the investigation?" Zhou asked in puzzlement. Lucas said, "The invisibility cloak companion egg that Lord Earjar spent a huge sum of money to buy has been stolen. The thief is a man with an East District face, so all the East District people on the Peninsula of Gods have to be investigated. They can't leave the Peninsula of Gods for the time being. However, you don't have to worry. When the invisibility cloak companion egg was stolen yesterday, you were with the great Lucas the entire time. I'll testify for you. Thank you, Lucas. Joan thanked him sincerely. Although he wasn't afraid of being investigated, Lucas's enthusiasm in informing them in advance was indeed out of good intentions. Chapter 467. The invisibility cloak companion egg was actually stolen. I wonder who did it. Joan hung up the phone and said to Ensheng, "It's hard to say. There are too many people who want the invisibility cloak companion egg. Furthermore, just the appearance of someone from the East District isn't reliable. There are some rare primordial energy skills and companion beasts that have the ability to change one's appearance," Ensheng said. As the two of them spoke, they heard a knock on the door. When they opened the door, they saw that it was indeed the local police who wanted them to assist in the investigation. Zhou Wen and Ensheng cooperatively followed them to the police station. Then, they saw many people from the East District being brought over. Li Maobai was among them. Most of the people who were brought back were from the East District who had participated in the auction. Zhou Wen and Ensheng were interrogated separately, but they were quickly released. "My friends, you are fine now. I've already made it clear to them. You were with me yesterday, so there was no chance of stealing the companion egg. However, before the ban is lifted, you are temporarily unable to leave the Peninsula of Gods." Lucas walked over and said warmly, "That's good too. I can entertain you for a few more days." "Lucas, do you know what kind of person stole the invisibility cloak companion egg?" Ensheng asked. Lucas said, "It's a man from the East District. He acted as a companion egg merchant and entered Lord Urjar's house. After he left, the invisibility cloak companion egg disappeared. From the surveillance footage, it's a man from the East District. However, it's hard to tell his age. As you know, in our eyes, men from the East District look about the same. Furthermore, it's hard to tell their age." "Can we see the surveillance footage?" Ensheng asked again. "I'm afraid not. However, if you just want to see what the thief looks like, look at this." Lucas handed a piece of paper to Ensheng. It was a wanted poster with a photo on it. It was indeed a man from the East District. He looked to be in his 20s or 30s. "Do you know him?" Lucas asked. "No." Ensheng looked carefully before shaking his head. Zhou Wen looked at the portrait and felt that he had never seen such a man before. However, for some reason, he found him somewhat familiar. After taking a closer look, Zhou Wen shook his head and said, "I really don't know him." After returning to the hotel, Ensheng said to Zhou Wen, "Perhaps this will be an opportunity. Since the invisibility cloak companion egg has been stolen, it's ownerless. Perhaps we have a chance to obtain it. We don't even know who stole the companion egg. What chance do we have?" Zhou Wen said, "The Peninsula of God's terrain is dangerous. There are dimensional zones everywhere. There aren't many paths we can take. It won't be easy to escape with the invisibility cloak companion egg. We might have a chance," Ensheng said. "I'm just afraid that person will hide in a dimensional zone with the companion egg and come out in a year or so. When the time comes, regardless of whether the companion egg hatches or not, it will be impossible to capture him again." Zhou Wen shook his head. "That will depend on the strength of Urjar and the other tycoons from the Peninsula of Gods. Regardless, we won't suffer any losses," Ensheng said with a smile. Zhou Wen returned to his room and prepared to grind dungeons. Among the 3 dungeons, he had already been to the Metalwork Temple in real life. Although he hadn't ventured deep, he wasn't in a rush to grind again. As for the remaining Music Temple and Cursed Demon Palace, Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment before choosing to enter the Cursed Demon Palace. The unknown was interesting. Zhou Wen also wanted to see what the Cursed Demon Palace, which had been misnamed as the Goddess of Wisdom's Temple, looked like. After entering the game dungeon, the blood-colored avatar appeared in a palace. The palace was ancient and glorious. There were many exquisite statues and patterns, but it gave off a sinister and terrifying feeling. It looks so sinister. It's obvious that it's not a proper temple. Why would those people think that this is the temple of the Goddess of Wisdom? Zhou Wen found it so sinister and terrifying even though he was reading a cartoonish version. The temple in real life was definitely more sinister and terrifying. However, Zhou didn't know that many temples were actually extremely sinister and terrifying. Without seeing any dimensional creatures, Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to walk into the palace. After taking a few steps, a stone statue beside him suddenly came to life. The stone statue was a warrior holding a sword and shield. When Zhou approached it, it suddenly came to life and cleaved down with the stone sword in its hand. Without needing Zhou to take action, the fire furnace queen beside the blood-colored avatar spewed out a ball of flames and blasted the stone statue into pieces. When Zhou returned to the hotel, he had hatched the fire furnace queen and the silver water snake companion egg. Fire furnace queen, epic, life providence, fire elemental body life soul, flaming crown strength, 36 speed, 37 constitution, 32 primordial energy, 37 talent skill, flame bullet, fire furnace, fire elemental affinity companion form. Flaming crown. The fire furnace queen stats were considered top-notch at the epic stage, but compared to Overlord's sword, her attack power was still much weaker. Furthermore, her companion form augmented fire elemental powers, which wasn't of much use to Zhou. However, the fire furnace queen had a huge benefit. Her fire elemental body life providence and fire elemental affinity primordial energy skill allowed her to last a long time when she released fire elemental primordial energy skills. In addition, the fire furnace's large-scale fire attack could turn a 100-meter radius into a sea of fire. Furthermore, it could last for a long time. It was a godly skill for grinding monsters. Although Banana Fairy's Grandine Wind was stronger, Zhou needed to constantly use it. As for the fire furnace, the area would be constantly burned by a sea of fire within an hour. No matter how many monsters entered, they would die. Of course, dimensional creatures that could withstand the fire furnace were a different story. By bringing her out to kill monsters, Zhou could avoid being entangled by a large group of ordinary monsters. It was much more convenient, and his grinding efficiency would increase. Zhou originally imagined that there would be many monsters that used curse powers in this cursed demon palace. Truth Listener happened to be able to restrain it. To his surprise, all he saw were stone monsters, stone warriors, stone lions, and stone scorpions. The entire demon palace was filled with stone statues. They were all dimensional creatures with powerful bodies. He didn't encounter any that could curse. The Truth Listener earring didn't react either. Later on, Zhou couldn't be bothered to distinguish which stone statues were alive and which were dead. When he arrived at a spot, he got the fire furnace queen to throw a ball of fire furnace in, turning it into a sea of fire and burning all the stone statues inside. Notifications of killing dimensional creatures constantly appeared on the phone screen. Quite a number of dimensional crystals dropped. Chapter 468. With the baby tiger around, the dimensional crystals that dropped had pretty good stats. Many of them exceeded 30. Among them was an essence energy skill crystal left behind by a stone warrior. With the fire furnace queen, he grinded his way forward and was blocked by a palace. The stone door of the palace was tightly shut, and on the stone door, Zhou saw the carving on it again. There was a woman's side profile on a shield, but what was different was that the woman's face on the shield was straight. One could tell that it was an extremely beautiful girl. Her eyes were as alluring as the sea. Although it was only a carving, it made one involuntarily take a second look. Just as Zhou took a glance, he felt his ear heat up. The Truth Listener earring emitted an intense burning sensation. Then, he felt terrifying primordial energy surge into his body, filling his body with primordial energy that was constantly seeping out. Such terrifying essence energy. If not for the Truth Listener earring, the blood-colored avatar would probably be dead by now, right? Zhou was alarmed. Zhou realized that as long as the blood-colored avatar didn't look at the beauty's eyes on the stone door, Truth Listener wouldn't react. In other words, the beauty's eyes were the source of the problem. Zhou closed his eyes and relied on Truth Listener's hearing. The beauty's eyes on the stone door were completely useless. When he arrived in front of the door, Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to push open the stone door with all his might, but the stone door didn't budge at all. It was as though it was welded shut. Zhou slashed a few times with the Overlord sword, but the stone door seemed to be protected by divine power. The Overlord sword's ever-victorious characteristic failed to leave a mark on the door, much less split it open. Since there's a door, I can definitely enter. But how do I enter? Zhou fumbled around the door, hoping to find the mechanism to open it. When Zhou hands touched the eyes of the beauty sculpture, he heard a click as though some mechanism had been activated. The door automatically opened and retreated to the left and right. The door opened, revealing the palace inside. It was pitch black without any light. Zhou scanned the palace with Truth Listener's ability and saw many stone pillars and some braziers. However, as the palace was too big, Truth Listener's power couldn't reach its depths. However, there were no dimensional creatures or stone statues within its range. Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to step into the palace. After the blood-colored avatar stepped into the palace's door automatically closed. The 2 rows of braziers in the palace automatically lit up, extending all the way to the deepest depths of the palace. Zhou looked in and saw a throne. Sitting on the throne was a beautiful girl. Her face was identical to the beauty on the shield. She looked lively as though she had walked out of a painting. However, she was even more charming than the portrait, especially her eyes. Although they were cartoonish, they were full of temptation, making it impossible for people to move their eyes away from her eyes. With just a glance, the blood-colored avatar's body immediately underwent a special change. Its blood-colored body turned into stone, turning into a stone statue. Then, the game screen went black. Dead. Why is the Truth Listener earring useless? Zhou found it odd. Previously, the Truth Listener earring was clearly effective, but why was it completely useless after seeing the girl in the palace? Even if the girl was at the mythical stage and the Truth Listener earring wasn't strong enough to withstand such a powerful force, it wasn't to the point of not reacting at all. This left Zhou puzzled. Since the Truth Listener earring doesn't react, there's only one possibility. The girl's eyes in the palace aren't the same power as the beauty's eyes on the shield. After some thought, Zhou could only come up with one possibility. This made Zhou even more interested in the girl. He dripped his blood to revive and entered the cursed demon palace again. He stormed all the way to the girl's palaces. After entering, Zhou made the blood-colored avatar keep its eyes closed. He didn't look at the girl at all to prevent himself from being petrified by her gaze. Indeed, this method was feasible. As long as he didn't look at the girl's eyes, he wouldn't be petrified. Could this girl be that creature from the legends? Zhou had specially read the myths of the Peninsula of Gods in the past. When he saw that the girl's gaze had the ability to petrify, he thought of a famous demon in myths, Medusa. In ancient myths, Medusa was a natural demon. Her portrait would be engraved on a shield to ward off evil. There was also a myth that Medusa was a beautiful girl. She tried to compete with the goddess of wisdom with her beauty, but she was beheaded by the goddess of wisdom and embedded on the shield. Modern people generally believe that Medusa had a human head and a snake body. Her hair resembled a venomous snake, but in ancient myths, only Medusa's hair was a venomous snake. She was no different from a human. Zhou didn't know which myth matched a dimensional zone, but if this girl was really Medusa, the possibility of the latter was higher. The girl sat on the throne and watched the blood-colored avatar approach. She didn't move as she sat there quietly. Zhou carefully approached the girl and had already walked to the throne, but he still didn't see the girl move. Don't tell me she's a fake? Zhou muttered inwardly. However, the girl in front of him had bright eyes and white teeth. She was indescribably beautiful, especially her beautiful long hair. It had an indescribable charm to it. She didn't look like a fake no matter how he looked at it. The blood-colored avatar had already walked in front of the girl, but she was still sitting there motionless. She only looked at him with her eyes, without any intention of speaking. Don't tell me she's really a fake? Zhou thought as he extended his finger and pinched the girl's face. It was fleshy and warm. It was clearly not a fake. When Zhou touched the girl, her expression immediately changed. Almost instantly, the girl's beautiful face became as terrifying as a ferocious ghost. Her beautiful hair also turned into venomous snakes. In an instant, she turned from a beautiful girl to a terrifying demoness. Behind her, a pair of swan wings appeared. She opened her mouth full of fangs and let out a strange scream at Zhou. Zhou couldn't help but open his eyes to glance at her. The truth listener earring immediately emitted a scorching energy. It was so hot that it almost scalded Zhou's ears. At the same time, large amounts of primordial energy surged into his body. Strange, why is truth listener useful again? Zhou was puzzled, but he didn't have the time to think about it carefully. The demoness head of venomous snakes had already devoured him. Chapter 469. The terrifying venomous snakes were uncountable as they enveloped the entire palace, preventing Zhou from dodging. Zhou drew his sword and slashed at the venomous snake in front of him. However, when the venomous snake in front of him was injured, more venomous snakes surged over and wrapped around the Overlord's sword's blade. Some venomous snakes even bit the Overlord's sword and snapped it. Zhou's heart stirred as he switched to the Ancient Sovereign Sutra and summoned the Defy Ancient Sovereign to fuse with him. At the same time, he used the Demon Dragon True Body. With the augmentation of the powerful Demon Dragon True Body, the blood-colored avatar ignored the venomous snake's bites and charged at Medusa. The venomous snakes only left shallow teeth marks on the Demon Dragon True Body scales. Although the snake venom had invaded, Zhou's poison resistance was high. With the augmentation of the Demon Dragon True Body, the snake venom couldn't do anything to him. With a grab with both hands, the venomous snakes that were grabbing at him were torn apart. However, he charged at Medusa and threw a punch at her chest. Medusa wasn't to be outdone as she fought Zhou. Her speed was faster than Zhou's, but her strength wasn't as strong as his Demon Dragon True Body. Momentarily, the battle was a draw. Originally, Zhou's Demon Dragon True Body could only last for 10 seconds at most, but Zhou kept looking at Medusa's eyes. The petrifying ability of Medusa's eyes was converted into boundless primordial energy through the Truth Listener earring, replenishing Zhou's primordial energy. This allowed him to use the Demon Dragon True Body for a longer period of time. Medusa's strongest eyes of petrification was useless against Zhou. Her long snake hair was relatively ineffective against Zhou. Momentarily, it was a stalemate. Although he had a large amount of primordial energy replenishing him, it wasn't enough for the Demon Dragon True Body to sustain the expenditure. As time went on, the Demon Dragon True Body wouldn't be able to hold on. Furthermore, even if he could hold on, the Demon Dragon True Body wasn't enough to kill Medusa. At most, he could maintain his undefeated state. With a thought, Zhou directly used the primordial energy skill, Transcendent Flying Immortal, in his Demon Dragon True Body state. He released an extremely powerful force in a bid to kill Medusa. Beams of light crisscrossed, leaving wounds on Medusa's body one after another. However, they failed to kill her. Instead, Zhou showed signs of being poisoned when the blood spewed out from Medusa's body splattered. Due to the excessive expenditure of essence energy, the Demon Dragon True Body automatically dissipated as the blood-colored avatar was bitten to death by the venomous snakes that filled the sky. With Truth Listener and the Demon Dragon True Body, I'm a surprising counter to Medusa. I can actually fight Medusa head-on. However, it's still a little difficult to kill her, but the chances are very high. Zhou thought about how he could kill Medusa. Before thinking of a way to kill Medusa, Zhou didn't head to the Cursed Demon Palace again. The drop rate there was too low. Even with the baby tiger's augmentation, nothing good dropped. After resting for a while, Zhou restarted the game and went to Music Temple. After entering the Music Temple, Zhou immediately saw a musical note with wings flying in the air. It looked strange and magical. As the musical notes flew, They also emitted strange sound waves, releasing an offensive ability similar to sound waves. However, a legendary sound wave attack was naturally useless against Zhou. He shattered the musical note with a single strike. Killed legendary creature, musical note sprite. Discovered dimensional crystal. Zhou saw a dimensional crystal drop, but it was only a speed 14 crystal. He couldn't be bothered to pick it up as he continued walking into the music temple with a baby tiger. Inside the music temple, musical note sprites would fly out from time to time. Although they looked similar with wings growing on them, there were still some subtle differences. Furthermore, their sound wave attacks were somewhat different, but they were useless against Zhou. After grinding for a while, quite a number of dimensional crystals dropped. There were even essence energy skill crystals. However, these musical note sprites were at the legendary stage, so they weren't of much use to Zhou. "My dear friend, you are about to be free," Lucas called and said excitedly. What happened? Zhou was already used to Lucas's brainless manner of speaking. "The thief who stole the invisibility cloak companion egg has been found. The ban will soon be lifted," Lucas said. "Found? Who is it?" Zhou asked in surprise. He thought to himself that the local wealthy families on the Peninsula of Gods were really efficient. They had actually found the person so quickly. "I don't know yet, but he has already been trapped in the newly discovered goddess of Wisdom Temple. He shouldn't be able to escape. I believe we will capture him soon," Lucas said. Zhou was slightly taken aback as he thought to himself, "Isn't the newly discovered goddess of Wisdom Temple the cursed demon palace? Have you sent someone in?" Zhou asked. "They've entered, but they encountered some trouble. Only one of the experts who entered came out. Now, Lord Urjar is gathering manpower. He will definitely be able to capture that person in the next few days," Lucas said. "Do you know what problem they encountered?" Zhou had already guessed something. It was likely that they had been struck in front of the stone door. "I can't be sure yet." According to the epic expert who returned, he saw the epic experts turn into stone statues from afar. He doesn't know what happened, Lucas briefly explained. As expected, after Zhou heard that, he knew that something had indeed happened to those people in front of the stone door. They had been turned into stone statues by the Medusa statue on the stone door. However, things didn't develop as smoothly as Lucas had predicted. After a few days, the ban still hadn't been lifted. Zhou and Ensheng could only stay on the Peninsula of Gods. According to Lucas, Urjar had sent many experts in, but more than half of them died. They still failed to capture the person from the East District. Now, they were beginning to suspect that it wasn't the Temple of the Goddess of Wisdom, but the Palace of the Demoness, Medusa. This was because many epic experts had been petrified in front of the door. "There's something fishy about this," Ensheng said with a frown. "What's fishy?" Zhou asked. "The Peninsula of Gods is someone else's territory after all. A person from the East District can actually cause such a huge stir. Urjar sent so many epic experts in, but they failed to capture him. This itself is very problematic." After a pause, Ensheng said, "I think there are two possibilities. One is that the person has already incubated the invisibility cloak, allowing him to survive such a pursuit." "What's the other possibility?" Zhou asked. "The other possibility is interesting. Perhaps someone is behind this and wants to use the invisibility cloak to do something to the wealthy families on the Peninsula of Gods," Ensheng said with a faint smile. Chapter 470. Knock, knock, knock. Someone suddenly knocked on the door. It was very loud. Zhou and Ensheng found it odd. The room had a doorbell, so why didn't they press the doorbell but knock on the door? When they opened the door, they saw that it was Lucas. "My good friend, our luck has come this time." Lucas didn't stand on ceremony at all. He directly entered the door and sat on the sofa. He poured himself a cup of water and drank it in one gulp before speaking to Zhou and Ensheng. "Could it be that the thief has been caught?" Zhou asked. "If he's been caught, what luck do we have? No one has been able to catch the thief yet. They haven't even found him. Lord Urjar suspects that he has entered the palace to hide, but no one can open the palace door. Therefore, Lord Earjar has issued a bounty mission. Anyone who can open the palace door will receive a huge bounty. Lucas looked at Zhou Wen and Sheng and asked in anticipation, "How about it? Shall we team up to open the palace door?" Zhou Wen found it odd when he heard that. The palace door wasn't difficult to open. As long as one closed their eyes and walked to the door, they wouldn't look at the beauty's eyes. Then, they would use both hands to press on the beauty's eyes. It was unbelievable that no one could open such a simple door. In fact, Zhou Wen was wrong. It wasn't difficult to avoid being petrified. This was because the beauty on the door would only be petrified when one looked at her eyes. It was unlike Medusa in the palace. Even if one didn't look at her eyes, they would still be petrified as long as they were seen by her. However, even if they weren't petrified, everyone now knew that the owner of the palace was likely Medusa. Who would dare touch Medusa's eyes? Therefore, the matter was stuck here. No one could open the palace door. Can't the great Lucas do such a trivial matter as opening the palace door alone? Why do you need us? And Sheng joked. However, Lucas didn't blush as he said with a smile, "A great hero also needs companions." Just like the 6 League heroes, it was the 6 heroes who worked together to create a legend of the League. I think we can form a hero team and open the palace door together. We can leave behind a legend. What do you think? How much is Earjar offering? Zhou Wen asked. 10 epic companion eggs. Furthermore, they're all products of Pluto Temple. Those are all good stuff. Ordinary people can't enter Pluto Temple at all. Also, there's a permanent pass to the Peninsula of Gods. It allows you to enter the public dimensional zones of the Peninsula of Gods permanently. This is a reward for foreign independent hunters, Lucas said. That sounds good. What kind of epic companion eggs drop from Pluto King Hall? Zhou Wen was somewhat interested. They are all underworld creatures' companion eggs. There are many types, and they can't be bought on the market. Pluto Temple is Lord Earjar's family's private property. Outsiders aren't allowed to enter. Lucas didn't seem to know much about it either. What do you think? Think about it. The 3 of us will go together. The companion eggs will be split equally. The pass will be yours, Lucas continued persuading. Sure, but I have another condition, Zhou Wen said after some thought. What conditions? Lucas asked in puzzlement. I want to go to Pluto Temple to take a look. I just need one chance. Zhou Wen wanted to go to Pluto Temple to see if there was a tiny palm symbol. Zhou Wen had heard of Pluto Temple on the Peninsula of Gods. Legend had it that it was the territory of Pluto King. There were many dimensional creatures of the underworld inside, and they were very different from ordinary dimensional creatures. Can't you change the conditions? For example, adding 2 more companion eggs? Lucas said with some difficulty. No, Zhou Wen answered with certainty. Then I'll talk to Lord Earjar. By the way, how much do you know about the palace? Are you confident in opening the door? Although Lucas felt that Zhou Wen and Sheng were very strong and that he might have a chance of opening the door with them, he didn't have absolute confidence. He only wanted to try his luck. However, if he couldn't open the door after discussing the conditions, it would be too embarrassing. I heard that it should be Medusa's palace, right? If that's the case, I might have a way to open the door, Zhou Wen said. How confident are you? Lucas asked. If it's Medusa's palace, I'm about 90% confident, Zhou Wen answered. Lucas was overjoyed when he heard that. He patted his chest and said, if that's the case, wait for my good news. I'll definitely be able to convince Lord Earjar. After Lucas left, and Sheng asked Zhou Wen, are you really confident in opening the door to the palace? We haven't recovered from our injuries, so it's not suitable for us to do anything too risky. As you know, I have a companion beast that can withstand the power of curses. Medusa's eyes of petrification is actually a kind of curse power. It's useless against me. If it's just opening the door, there's no need to take any risks, Zhou Wen explained. That's good. However, you still have to be careful. You can't be careless just because you have a companion beast protecting you. There are too many strange powers in this world. No companion egg is absolutely invincible, even mythical companion beasts, and Sheng said seriously. Zhou Wen knew that Sheng was afraid that he would suffer because of his carelessness. He nodded and said, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. He wasn't exaggerating at all. He knew the cursed demon palace like the back of his hand. As long as he didn't enter Medusa's palace, he wouldn't be in any danger. Lucas rushed to Urjar's house. Urjar happened to be receiving a guest. Henry, let me introduce you. This is the #1 freelance hunter of the Peninsula of Gods, Lucas. Chapter 471. Why are you looking at me? Lucas found it odd. I've seen your recent updates. You have a good relationship with Joanne, right? Henry said. So what? Lucas frowned slightly. It's very simple. Hold this first. Henry handed a bottle to Henry. When Lucas took the bottle from Henry, he felt his fingers itch. He raised his hand and saw a red dot on his finger, as though he'd been bitten by a bug. Lucas thought nothing of it as he held the bottle and asked, "What's this?" It's filled with water. All you need to do is pour the water in the bottle into the water Joe when he's drinking and let him drink it, Henry said. Then, I can help you open the door to the palace for free. Impossible. I won't help you do those dirty things. Lucas placed the bottle heavily on the table and turned to Urjar. Lord Urjar, there's no need for their help. I've already found Joe 1 and company to go to the palace with me. I guarantee that I can open the door to the palace. Urjar was somewhat hesitant as Lucas continued. Lord, please believe me. I'll definitely be able to open the door to the palace and help you capture that thief. Urjar looked at Lucas before looking at Henry. Finally, he said to Henry, Your Excellency, if you're willing to help, my previous promises are still valid. Henry sat on the sofa and didn't answer Urjar. He picked up the bottle of water that Lucas had placed on the table and said to Lucas, I believe you will agree, right? Of course not. Who do you think the great Lucas is? Lucas said angrily. Is that so? Henry looked at Lucas, but the look in his eyes became increasingly odd. Something seemed to be shaking in his eyes as his pupils became very strange. It was as though there was a mosquito or bug trapped in a glass ball. Lucas immediately felt as though countless bugs were gnawing at his bones. The pain made his face turn pale as beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Despicable fellow, what did you do to me? Lucas nearly fainted from the pain as he glared at Henry. Henry, how dare you attack my people in my territory? Urjar's face turned cold as he stared at Henry. However, Henry had an indifferent expression. He placed the bottle in front of Lucas and said indifferently, Do as I say. Otherwise, you won't die. However, this pain will continue until you die. If you don't believe me, you can find someone to try and see if they can relieve your pain. After that, Henry got up and bowed slightly to Urjar. Dear Mr. Urjar, I believe I will be able to serve you soon. I look forward to our next meeting. If I were you, I would immediately relieve Lucas of the pain. Urjar waved his hand, and immediately, a few epic experts surrounded him. Mr. Urjar, I hope you can consider it carefully. Joe 1 is an enemy of our Cape family. Do you want to be enemies with our Cape family as well? With that said, Henry strode away, ignoring the epic experts. Urjar gritted his teeth and didn't give the order to attack Henry. Lucas, you know how powerful the Cape family is. They're the uncrowned kings of the West District. We still don't have the ability to fight them. After Henry left, Urjar said helplessly to Lucas as he looked at the small bottle of water. Lucas wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and reached out to grab the small bottle. Zhou Wan and Sheng waited for Lucas's news in the hotel. Before long, Lucas rushed back. Lucas, how did the negotiation go? Zhou Wan asked. I've been rushing all the way back. I'm dying of thirst. Let me drink some water first. As Lucas spoke, he sat on the sofa in the living room. He picked up the teapot and poured himself a cup of water. After finishing it in one gulp, he filled it up for himself and poured a cup for Zhou Wan and Sheng. I didn't manage to negotiate with the Pluto Hall Pass, Lucas said as he held his teacup. Is the Pluto Hall Pass that precious? Can't outsiders even take a look? Zhou Wan said in surprise. Although I didn't manage to negotiate the Pluto Hall Pass, I've already discussed it with Lord Urjar. You can leave the Peninsula of Gods in advance. Pack up and follow me to the airport later, Lucas said. Thank you so much, Lucas. However, we still want to stay here for a period of time. We have no intention of leaving for the time being, Joan said as he drank a mouthful of water. Seeing Joan drink the water, Lucas heaved a sigh of relief and said, Since you don't plan on leaving, can you consider it again? Come with me to open the door to the palace. The bounty I mentioned previously will be yours. I don't want anything. Just treat it as helping me. All right, let's do as we agreed. The companion eggs will be split equally. The passes will be ours. Joan nodded. Since he couldn't obtain the Pluto Hall pass, he could accept a few Pluto Hall companion eggs and passes to the other temples. Of course, Joan's main goal was to hope that Earjar and company could find the thief. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a chance to fish in troubled waters. Haha, I knew it. Lucas's friends are all good friends. Lucas wrapped his muscular arm around Joan's neck and laughed loudly. Lucas quickly led Joan and Shung to the cursed demon palace. It had already been sealed by Earjar's men. Without his orders, no one was allowed to enter or leave. Lucas was naturally an exception. After showing his identification, he brought Joan and Shung into the cursed demon palace. Because many people had rushed into the cursed demon palace to search for traces of the thief, most of the stone statue creatures in front of them had already been cleared. Joan and company didn't encounter any dimensional creatures when they were about to approach the palace's entrance. The palace's entrance is up ahead. Wear this. Otherwise, even if you accidentally see the girl's eyes on the door, you'll be petrified. Lucas took out 3 pairs of eye masks and gave 2 to Joan and Shung. He wore one himself. Joan and Shung put on their eye masks before continuing forward. Joan had truth listener's ability, so it wasn't a problem even if he couldn't see. And Shung was about the same. Wearing the eye mask didn't seem like he was wearing it. He was rather agile. Only Lucas seemed to become a little clumsy after wearing the eye mask. His steps became a little sluggish. Joan didn't rush him. He slowly walked to the palace's entrance and pretended to fumble around the door a few times. At the same time, he pressed the girl's eyes with both hands. The palace door automatically slid open and the door immediately opened. It's open. You can take off the eye mask, Joan said. Lucas took off the eye mask and indeed, he realized that the stone door was gone. He was immediately overjoyed. He took out his phone and stood in front of the door to take a photo with Joan and company before uploading it online. The great Lucas and his friends have opened the mysterious and terrifying palace door together. Chapter 472. After leaving the cursed demon palace, Lucas said while riding his Tyrannosaurus Rex, "Go back to the hotel first. I'm going to Lord Earjar to claim the bounty. I'll send it to you later." Just as Joan and Shung were about to leave, Lucas said, "The Peninsula of Gods hasn't been peaceful recently. Don't eat or drink anything. You have to check it carefully." "Got it." Joan smiled and waved his hand before leaving with Shung. Lucas rode the Tyrannosaurus Rex as he ran on the streets. Many young people would cheer and wave at him when they saw him. Lucas also responded enthusiastically. After leaving the city, Lucas's expression darkened. He rode the Tyrannosaurus Rex and quickly arrived at a manor belonging to the traffic police. "Tell Henry that I've already done what he wants me to do," Lucas said to the gatekeeper. "Please come in. Lord Henry is waiting for you," the gatekeeper said with a smile, as though he had already known that Lucas would come. Lucas followed the person into the manor and soon saw Henry. Henry was sitting in front of the pool, basking in the sun. He held an exquisite antique gun in his hand and kept wiping it with a cloth. "Henry, I've already done what you asked me to do. Please remove the restrictions on me immediately." Lucas took out the small bottle and placed it on the table in front of Henry. The water-like liquid inside had already disappeared. Henry glanced at the bottle on the table and suddenly picked up the antique gun in his hand. He aimed it at Lucas and pulled the trigger. Lucas's reaction wasn't slow either. He used a shield to block his body, but the bullet was very strange. It actually made a turn and circled around the shield. It passed through the gap in his armor and shot into his muscles. Strangely, the bullet wasn't made of metal, but grayish-white bone. After it drilled into his muscles, many tiny blood vessels appeared on the bone bullet. They connected to Lucas's muscles and blood vessels, as though they were parasitic in his muscles. Lucas only felt intense pain in his upper body. Furthermore, he felt numb. He knelt on one leg and pressed his hands against the ground to prevent himself from falling to the ground. Henry looked at Lucas coldly and said disdainfully, "Do you think I'm as stupid as you? Do you think I won't know just because you threw it away? Since you're so great and willing to sacrifice for your friends, I'll fulfill your wish." Despicable person. How could the great Lucas betray his friends? You found the wrong person. Lucas suddenly stood up and slashed at Henry with his axe in both hands. Pitiful and ignorant fellow. Do you think that just because those brats call you the great Lucas, you are really some big shot? That's just the arrogance of the ignorant. In the eyes of the truly strong, you're just a lowly bug that can be poked to death with a single finger. Harry sat there without moving an inch. If he hadn't been careful or reacted quickly enough, he would probably have died under the terrifying golden divine light if he had been struck head-on. In front of the great Lucas, you are just an escaping worm. The golden divine light on Lucas's body dissipated, and the godlike light vanished as well. The gigantic axe landed on the ground. He held the axe's hilt with both hands, barely managing to keep his body from collapsing. However, his eyes were filled with contempt as he looked at Henry. As he spoke, he even took out his cell phone and took a selfie. Looking at the photo, he muttered to himself, as expected of the great Lucas. He's so handsome and charming even when he's exterminating worms. Chop off this bastard's limbs. I want him to lie in front of me like a worm. Henry was infuriated by Lucas's gaze. The person he viewed as a worm actually dared to look at him with such a gaze. It was the greatest insult to him. The few epic experts beside Henry immediately surrounded him. However, they were all very careful, not daring to charge at Lucas immediately. After all, Lucas's strike was too terrifying. The ravine that had split the manor into two was still there. It was a shocking sight. What are you afraid of? Can't you tell that he no longer has any strength? Henry said angrily. No, he does. A voice came from outside the manor. Chapter 473. Why are you here? Lucas turned his head and saw that it was Zhou Wan and Ensheng. As your strength, how can we not come? Wouldn't he be right? Ensheng said with a smile, but his eyes were a little cold. In fact, Ensheng and Zhou, one could tell that something was amiss when Lucas went to look for them today. However, he didn't say anything. The two of them had only been silently observing and didn't say anything. In the end, they secretly followed him here, but they never expected to see such a thing. When Henry saw the two of them, he said with a sneer, Zhou, you came at the right time. It's time to settle the score with Liz and John. And you and Shang, right? You were the one who crippled Liz's sea of energy, right? It was me. And Shang said frankly, from the looks of it, crippling her sea of energy is letting her off too lightly. She should be killed. Is that so? That's really unfortunate. I'm afraid you won't have the chance to touch a single strand of hair on the Cape family in the future. As Henry spoke, he raised the antique gun in his hand and aimed it at Zhou. He continued, If I were you, I would stop immediately. Otherwise, the bone-eating worm in Lucas's body will go berserk with my gunshot and instantly devour all his bones. You are his friends, and he has sacrificed so much for you. You don't want to see him die in such pain, right? Lucas is right. You really are a dirty worm. Zhou didn't stop as he continued walking towards Henry. He held the hilt of the bamboo blade as killing intent flashed in his eyes. I told you to stop. Didn't you hear me? Do you want to see him die? Henry pulled the trigger and shouted at Zhou. The bone-eating worm is your companion beast, right? If you die, your companion beast will naturally die as well. The threat of Lucas will naturally cease to exist. I'm about 35 meters away from you. Before your gun fires, I will behead you. If you don't believe me, you can try shooting. However, if I were you, I would immediately retract the bone-eating worm. This is because I'm not someone who likes to kill. Don't give me a reason to draw my saber, Zhou said as he continued walking toward Henry. Henry seemed to have heard an extremely ridiculous joke and said with a smile, "If the person who said this was in Tianzhua, I would do as he said." Do you really think that just because your father married in Tianzhua's mother, you're really in Tianzhua's younger brother? Even if you're in Tianzhua's younger brother, as long as Tianzhua himself isn't here, you have no right to say that to me. As he spoke, Henry pulled the trigger hard. His slender and powerful fingers grasped the hilt of the saber and drew it out smoothly. The saber beam appeared at an unbelievable speed. Everyone felt their vision blur as Zhou and his saber seemed to vanish. By the time they saw Zhou again, he was already behind Harry. In his hand was a thin saber that was as clear as a mirror. The tip of the saber was pointed diagonally to the ground as a drop of blood slowly flowed down the blade before dripping to the ground. The moment the blood dripped onto the ground, there was a crack, and the antique spear in Henry's hand split into two from the middle. Then, Henry's body was also split into two. Even his face that was filled with fear and disbelief was split into two. Lord Henry, the epic expert who had followed Henry here, was stunned. When they were at the Cape family, they only knew that Zhou was protected by the Yin family. He was just a student that was protected by the Yin family. However, this student had slain Henry with one strike. Even in the Cape family, which was filled with experts, Henry could be considered a top-notch expert. Such a person couldn't even block a single strike from Zhou. It left them horrified as they lost all their fighting spirit. By the time they reacted, all of them turned to flee. And Sheng appeared like a ghost. The dagger-like knife in his hand flickered. In just a moment, he killed all the epic experts as though he was slicing vegetables. After wiping the blood on the dagger, and Sheng said nonchalantly, "Leave first. Leave this to me." That's not good, right? Lucas snapped out of his shock and looked at Sheng with a strange look. "Leave it to him. He's more professional than us." Zhou pulled Lucas out. "Lucas, that axe of yours was really powerful. How did you do it?" Zhou and Lucas rode the Tyrannosaurus Rex to the city and were somewhat curious. The strength that Lucas used when he slashed out far exceeded his usual strength. The difference was like night and day. When Lucas heard Zhou praise him, he immediately became happy. He said smugly, "The great Lucas isn't just for show. My life providence is hero of glory. My life soul is the god of combat who believes in me. When I fight for glory and faith, I can unleash unparalleled strength." As Zhou listened, his expression turned odd. Although Lucas made himself sound very strong, and his life providence and life soul were indeed very strong, his strength was very strange. It could be said that most of the time, his life providence and life soul were useless. This was because his life providence and life soul were destined that he couldn't fight for himself. Most of the time, he could only activate the hero of glory life providence when fighting for others. Furthermore, Lucas's faith had to be firm. The more he believed in himself, the stronger his life soul would be. If he had a guilty conscience and did something that violated the hero's glory, his life providence would be useless. Furthermore, because of his guilt, the god of combat he believed in would become very weak. However, there was one situation where Lucas could become extremely strong. If many people acknowledged and worshipped him from the bottom of their hearts, his life soul would become extremely powerful. What a strange life providence and life soul, Zhou thought to himself. By the way, don't put the photo you took online. Don't mention this matter again in the future. Just pretend that you never saw Henry, Zhou said as he took out his phone to take a look. As Zhou spoke, he took out his phone to take a look. He saw that the dead man tree didn't react at all. It didn't appear and absorb Henry's corpse like before. "Of course, I'm not a fool," Lucas said as he took out his phone and deleted the photo he had taken. The Cape family was the uncrowned king of the West District. Although Lucas was famous on the Peninsula of Gods, he was still far from being able to fight them. If he were to be entangled with them, he would probably be in big trouble. Just as he deleted the photo, Lucas's phone suddenly rang. After Lucas picked it up, his expression immediately turned ugly. He couldn't help but exclaim, "What? Medusa in the palace has broken out of the seal. How did this happen?" Joan's expression changed when he heard Lucas's words. He knew very well how terrifying Medusa was. If Medusa really broke out of the seal, this city, or even the entire Peninsula of Gods, would become a human fiend. Chapter 474. Sorry, I have to return immediately. Let's talk again if there's a chance in the future, Lucas said to Joan. Let's go take a look together. Joan felt that this matter was somewhat odd. Medusa was in the palace, and if someone entered the palace and touched her, she would turn into a banshee and attack humans. However, after entering the palace, the door would automatically close. Medusa shouldn't have run out of the palace. At the very least, she had never run out in-game. Could it be the work of that bandit? Joan felt that something was amiss no matter how he thought about it. Perhaps it had something to do with that bandit. All right, Lucas didn't stand on ceremony with Joan as he urged the Tyrannosaurus Rex to run towards the city at full speed. Before he reached the city, he saw a crowd fleeing towards him. Many people saw Lucas and asked him for help. Lord Lucas, a dimensional creature, is destroying the city. Quickly go take a look. After Lucas asked for directions, he immediately rode the Tyrannosaurus Rex and ran against the flow of people. Not long after entering the city, he saw that the usually bustling streets were empty. However, there were many stone statues. There were elderly, children, and some animals. They maintained all sorts of postures. Some were running for their lives in fear, while others were falling to the ground. There was also a puppy that was peeing at a telephone pole, but it had turned into stone. Many buildings were also destroyed and on fire. The city seemed to have turned into a ghost town. When Joan saw the stone statues, he knew that they were Medusa's handiwork. They were different from the stone statues on the door. Even if he didn't look at her eyes, as long as he was seen by Medusa's eyes of petrification, he would still be petrified. Lucas's expression changed drastically. Among the people who had been petrified, there were clearly people he knew. A helicopter flew past in the sky, and Lucas hurriedly chased after it. After turning 2 streets, he saw a young woman running ahead. Lucas chased after her and shouted, "Barbara, what are you doing there?" The young woman turned her head and was immediately overjoyed when she saw Lucas. "Lord Lucas, quickly go and take a look. Medusa is destroying the entire city. Other than you, no one can save this city." "Where is she? What happened? Why would Medusa run out of the palace?" Lucas asked. "I don't know either. After you sent the news, Lord Earjar sent people into the palace, but not long after, Medusa ran out of the palace. All the people and creatures that her eyes saw turned into stone statues. Even companion beasts were no exception. Because I had a special companion beast protecting me, I wasn't petrified and escaped the calamity," Barbara said. "Where is she?" Lucas asked. "She's over there. I'll take you there, but you'd better not ride the Tyrannosaurus Rex. She'll petrify you if she sees you," Barbara said, pointing at the Tyrannosaurus Rex. All right, Lucas put away the Tyrannosaurus. With a shield in one hand and a huge axe in the other, he ran in the direction Barbara had pointed. Barbara followed as well, but when she saw that Joan was also running over, she said to him, "Why are you following? Aren't you afraid of being petrified by Medusa? Why aren't you escaping to the underground air raid shelter?" "I'll follow and see if I can help." Joan wasn't afraid of Medusa. Truth Listener could perfectly restrain Medusa's eyes of petrification, and the demon dragon True Body could barely match Medusa. Although he couldn't kill Medusa, he didn't have to be afraid of her. Seeing that Joan had already run over, Barbara didn't say anything else. However, she didn't think much of it. Joan looked like a student and was even younger than her. How could he be of any help? If Medusa really saw him, he would probably be petrified immediately. After running for a short while, he heard an explosion coming from the street next door. He also saw a few helicopters shooting at the ground in the sky. Lucas climbed up a building. Joan and Barbara climbed up as well. After reaching the top of the building, they ran to the other side and looked down. They saw a 3 to 4 meter tall demoness with hair that resembled venomous snakes. She was standing on top of a 3-story building. The venomous snake hair on her head seemed to be able to extend infinitely. It flew into the air and wrapped around a helicopter, shattering it into pieces. An epic expert rode an eagle and tore through the air. He held a spear in his hand and wanted to attack Medusa in midair. However, Medusa only turned her head to glance at him. The epic expert and the eagle companion beast were petrified and fell from the sky, shattering into pieces. A cannonball exploded from afar. When the cannonball exploded, essence gold fragments splattered, but they didn't deal any damage to Medusa. In a nearby building, someone was constantly shooting Medusa with essence gold bullets. Many people were also using companion beasts to attack her. However, it was useless. Medusa swept her gaze, and all the companion beasts she saw turned into stone statues. The dancing venomous snake hair drilled into the building and bit the soldiers and policemen to death. Any human bitten by the snake hair would instantly turn into a pool of blood. The snake-like hair wrapped around the tanks and flung them into the sky. When they fell, the nearby buildings collapsed. The terrifying Medusa wreaked havoc in the city, but no one could stop her. Humans were vulnerable in front of her. Even epic experts only dared to control their companion beasts to attack her from afar. They didn't dare be seen by her. Boom! A nearby building collapsed with a loud bang. Many humans who had been hiding inside ran out in horror, crying and screaming. Medusa looked over, and immediately, groups of humans were petrified. Their faces were filled with all sorts of horrified expressions. Bam! The shattered floorboards fell down, instantly smashing the petrified humans into pieces. Damn it! Lucas grabbed his axe and wanted to jump towards a shorter building beside him. Where are you going? Joan pulled him back and asked. I'm going to run behind her and chop off her head like the legendary prince, Lucas said. You don't have the prince's diamond sword, hat of invisibility, and shoes of flying. Do you think you can succeed? Joan had also heard of the myth that Lucas had mentioned. With the help of the goddess of wisdom, he had taken several divine artifacts to secretly behead Medusa. It would be a wonder if he could chop off Medusa's head with a crappy axe. Where there is a will, there is a way. Someone has to do it. The great Lucas can do it. As Lucas spoke, he ran out and jumped onto the roof of a nearby building. Then, he crouched forward to prevent Medusa from discovering him. He continued moving towards another building and constantly approached Medusa. Chapter 475. Joan frowned slightly. Although what Lucas said made sense, he knew very well how powerful Medusa was. Even if Lucas could unleash the same power as he did in the manor, it would probably be difficult for him to injure Medusa. However, under such circumstances, even if Joan persuaded Lucas, he definitely wouldn't listen to him. Even if he knew that it was death, he would definitely do it. Little sister, you said that you have a companion beast that can withstand Medusa's eyes of petrification, right? Is that really the case? Joan asked Barbara. You're just a kid. Who are you calling little sister? I'm older than you, all right? Barbara glared at Joan. All right then. Missy, you said that a companion beast can withstand Medusa's eyes of petrification, right? Joan asked her. So what if I am? Don't get any nefarious ideas, Barbara said as she looked at Joan warily. Joan pointed in Lucas's direction. It's too dangerous for Lucas to fight Medusa. Why don't you lend him your companion beast? Do you think I don't want to? However, my companion beast is a piece of clothing. It's only useful when I wear it. The clothes transformed from a companion beast can't be worn by others. How can I help him? Barbara said. Clothes? Invisibility cloak? Joan asked in surprise. Unless it was an invisibility cloak that Medusa couldn't see, Joan didn't know what other clothes could prevent him from being petrified by the eyes of petrification. What are you thinking? How can I have an invisibility cloak? My companion beast is a sunshade cloak. It doesn't have any invisibility functions, Barbara said as she pointed at the cloak-like clothes on her body. It's this companion beast that can withstand Medusa's eyes of petrification. Joan sized up Barbara's clothes. The clothes were very loose, like a cloak. It wrapped around Barbara's entire body. It looked silver on the outside and was very eye-catching. It didn't look like it had any invisibility abilities. That's right. I'm very sure that it can withstand Medusa's eyes of petrification. Back then, when Medusa looked over, many people around me were petrified. Only I escaped unscathed, Barbara said. What companion beast is your sun-shielding cloak? What's its use? Joan asked. The sunshade cloak was obtained after I killed a legendary dimensional creature I encountered at the beach. Its name is Silverleaf Shell, and its companion form is the sunshade cloak. It has a certain level of defense, but it's not strong. It's mainly fireproof. After wearing it, even the flames of the fire sprites can't injure me in the metalwork temple. Just fire-resistant clothes? Furthermore, it's a low-level legendary companion beast. It can actually withstand Medusa's eyes of petrification. The more Joan heard, the more incredulous he found it. There were too many armors with fire-resistant properties, but none of them could defend against Medusa's eyes of petrification. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Anyway, I'm telling the truth, Barbara said angrily when she saw that Joan didn't believe her. Sunshade, fire protection. Wait, could it be because of this? Joan suddenly had an idea as he thought of a possibility. According to what Joan knew, snakes didn't have good vision. It could be said that they were extremely nearsighted. As for some snakes, they had infrared pyrogen detection organs that could sense the body temperature of living creatures to track their prey. Medusa wasn't a snake, but if she was a snake and her eyes of petrification also had infrared pyrogen detection functions, it could explain many things. For example, why her eyes of petrification could only petrify creatures and not inanimate objects like buildings. Another example was why Barbara's sunshade cloak could withstand Medusa's eyes of petrification. It was because not only was the sunshade cloak fireproof, but it also blocked Barbara's body temperature from spreading. Therefore, Medusa couldn't see her and naturally couldn't petrify her. Of course, it was impossible for the eyes of petrification to be as simple as detecting body temperature. It was likely of a higher level, so even companion beasts could be petrified. However, by analogy, he could roughly figure out the main purpose of the eyes of petrification and think of a way to crack it. Although Joan wasn't afraid of the eyes of petrification, Lucas didn't have such an ability. When he thought of Lucas, he saw that he had already run to the bottom of the 3-story building where Medusa was standing. He peeked his head out to check the situation as though he wanted to rush up. This fool. Don't tell me he really wants to fight Medusa head-on? Just as Joan was thinking about it, he saw Lucas leap up with a huge axe in hand. With a terrifying golden divine light, he cleaved at Medusa's neck from behind without any hesitation. Lord Lucas, all the best. Barbara waved her fists excitedly as she cheered for Lucas. It was obvious that Lucas held a very high position in her heart. Joan was also somewhat surprised by Lucas's strength. He had clearly expended his primordial energy not long ago, but now he could produce a strike that wasn't inferior to the one in the manor. It was indeed surprising. Could it be that the saying, "idiots aren't afraid of fatigue," is true? Joan thought to himself. It wasn't a bad idea for Lucas to sneak up on Medusa from behind. Unfortunately, Medusa didn't only have a pair of eyes. The venomous snakes formed from her hair were all her eyes. Just as Lucas jumped up, he was discovered by Medusa. Medusa turned her head to look at Lucas, who was in midair, cleaving down with his axe with both hands. It's over. Joan sighed inwardly. Although he wanted to help Lucas, he didn't have time to do so. Furthermore, even if he did, he wouldn't be able to deal with Medusa. He could only ensure that he could escape. Something that exceeded Zhou Wen's expectations happened. Medusa's gaze landed on Lucas's body, which was enveloped by golden divine light. She failed to petrify his body. However, the golden light on Lucas's body dissipated, and the godlike golden light vanished. He flew out like a cannonball. Boom! Lucas's body crashed into a building, shattering the glass windows of the building. Even Lord Lucas, Barbara covered her mouth and widened her eyes, as though she couldn't believe her eyes. Go and see how Lucas is doing. I'll lure Medusa away. When Zhou saw that Medusa was chasing after Lucas, he said to Barbara and rushed out of the building. Do you have a death wish? Barbara reacted and wanted to pull Zhou, but Zhou had already rushed out of the building. He leaped into the air and slashed at Medusa with a huge sword in his hand. The sword beam that resembled a sun spun violently as it slashed at Medusa. The venomous snakes on Medusa's head faced the sword beam. Many of the venomous snakes that could even mince a helicopter were sliced apart by the sword beam. When they landed on the ground, they turned into black hair. Medusa didn't chase after Lucas and turned to look at Zhou. Barbara was alarmed, believing that Zhou was doomed. However, she was surprised to discover that Zhou, who had landed on the long street, wasn't petrified. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.